It is 7 o'clock in the evening on Tuesday, September 8th, 2020. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Colerain Township Board of Trustees to order. Mr. Baker, would you please call the attendance roll?
Mr. Rajgopal?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here. I'd ask that you all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I ask you to remain standing for a moment of meditation. I would ask, Lord, please give us all the wisdom to continue to guide this township and try to do all the right and best things for everyone, and have the foresight to look ahead 6 months, a year, 2 years, and make sure that the decisions we make any given night are made with the future in mind. And please grant us that wisdom. Amen. Please be seated. The next item is from the Fiscal Office. Mr. Baker, how are you this evening?
Dandy. Thank you, Board.
Thank you. And that's for the approval of minutes from the August 25th, 2020 meeting.
We have minutes for both the special meeting and the regular meeting. As you recall, the special meeting was tabled, but since it was on, then there was an agenda. I did go ahead and print up some minutes.
I saw that.
So first, I would like to ask for approval of the special meeting of the Board of Trustees on August 25th, 2020.
I'll motion to approve the meeting minutes from August 25th, special trustee meeting 2020.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? And I would add that the reason things were tabled was due to the untimely passing of our employee, Jason Haynes. Was there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajgopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
And secondly, Board, I would ask for approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees on August 25th, 2020.
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes as provided from the regular meeting, trustee meeting August 25th, 2020.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Jeff, I sent you a couple typos and corrections. Did you receive those, obviously?
That's correct. I made those changes.
Was there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajgopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
And Mr. Waller?
Aye.
And the next item will be from our administrator, Mr. Jeff Mills.
Good evening, Mr. Unger, Board of Trustees. We have a number of presentations this evening. Before we launch into those, I did want to mention that presentation B, the presentation by City of Springdale Police Chief Thomas Wells, that will unfortunately have to be postponed due to Mr. Wells is ill this evening, so he was not able to attend. So when we get there, we will just move that to another agenda. Okay, so we start our presentations this evening with a presentation by Sheriff Deputy Bryan Peak on Environmental Crimes Task Force that he operates. Mr. Peak, welcome to Colerain. You know it well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Good morning, all. Evening, rather. I'm Bryan Peak with the Sheriff's Office. I am the environmental investigator for Hamilton County. My position is paid for by Hamilton County Recycling and Solid Waste. Priority one for my position is tires, used tires, transporting and dumping of used tires. In addition to that, probably secondhand is the overall dumping, any overall dumpings in the county. I'd say 80% of my time is in the city of Cincinnati, albeit the townships are learning of my position and calling upon me to assist them if they have dumpings or tire situations. Currently, we have had two or three cases, Jeff, here where we've installed cameras, put cameras on East Miami River Road at your recommendation. I've worked with Chris Cavallero from your zoning department with some Board of Health issues to expedite those things, to try to get them into court and help them move along. As the segue, I don't necessarily do the investigation, but if it needs to go to court, your folks had a warrant, and I don't know if that came through the police department or how that came about, but the they needed some assistance, so we jumped on board. I signed a warrant for a Board of Health order, so that, kind of amp it up a little bit to show the individual that, hey, we mean business. The tires are priority, as I indicated. There's been a couple businesses here that obviously I've been alerted to, and I think probably the reason that I'm here is because of the tires that have been showing up in the township. Believe it or not, I don't have a trailer attached to my vehicle to take the tires, albeit if it's something that I can follow up with, or if there's someone, a neighbor, someone has video evidence of it, obviously I will follow up to the nth. Transporting more than 10 tires in a motor vehicle without a permit in the state of Ohio constitutes an unclassified felony. I didn't know that either as a young policeman, but if you have 11 tires in your vehicle and they are used and you have no legitimate reason, source to do that, and you do not have a certificate from the state of Ohio, that is an unclassified felony. Due to the dumping of the tires and due to the environmental effects that obviously follow along with that. Most of my complaints come from reportdumping.org. If you log on to reportdumping.org, there's a form that you can lodge a complaint, and that email comes directly to me, and that's obviously my workload, what I work from. In addition, you can log on to Hamilton County Recycles in the same manner to get the same board there to report dumpings. The major two collectors of tires in this region is obviously Rumpke and then Liberty Tire out of Columbus, Ohio. So if we would have tires accumulated on commercial property and or on private property, whereas somebody dumped them without the owner's consent, there is state funds available to come and pick up those tires. It has to be a minimum of 100 tires, but there are state funds available to come and pick up those tires. It's an application. I can walk individuals through that. It's an application. In addition to that, they have to sign an affidavit just verifying that they didn't authorize the dumping of the tires on their property. I have been to Gulf Manor, like I've obviously here this evening. We, with the Board of Health in townships in the county, will put up cameras, Jeff, as you know, and to catch people dumping. With that being said, I don't have to police that. Their police chief opted to have their policemen do that and either cite to their mayor's court, if you had a mayor's court, or downtown to municipal court judge room. Everything I do goes through a housing court docket in a municipal court, downtown Cincinnati, room 160 on Tuesday, Judge Bernie Bouchard. He hears everything that I do, whether it be assistance with zoning, whether it be dumping, whether it be any trash disposal, what have you. The tires are an unclassified felony, therefore when I have those kind of capers, those obviously have to be presented in front of the grand jury for a direct indictment. So if I can be of resource, Chief, I know I've given to a couple of your sergeants that I've met. I have some placards here kind of describing what I do, the means to report dumping. My email is on the bottom, and it's just a good information piece as far as the typical charges or the typical crimes that I investigate and how I go about charging.
That's great. Can I have one of those?
Yeah, oh yeah, here, yeah.
I've heard your name. I've heard of some of your great work. I just don't think we've ever met. So.
Yeah, I'll take one. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
So I will have a question for you when you return to the podium.
Yes, sir.
So will you put cameras on private property, or do you need the permission of the property owner? Because we have vacant properties that have dumping issues and where the owner left the building clean and, a month later people realize it's an empty building and they start dumping there. Do you have to chase down the owner, or?
If that individual wants, so I'm assuming then, Mr. Unger, if your zoning is going after them for the trash,
Right.
And they're like, look, it's not me. It happens all the time in the city. We typically like to get permission just so they know that we are going to be monitoring that property.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just so they know.
Sure.
Yeah, just so they know. So
It's
that
good
there's
to-
no
good to have that
issues
answer at a meeting,
hand.
so.
Exactly.
Brian, thanks for your service. was talking about a couple months ago, before this all happened, COVID, Brad Miller, and about installing camera. We got the heavy dumping up on Hobby Lobby, and they're going to install. Now there are people sending me sending message. What is it? Olympus Club, Olympus Club dumping. You know, it's like we mentioned about the health department, that environmental service install the camera. We got some extra money. You know, can we do that?
So, yes, I have through the department 2 cameras, but through Chuck DeYonk, who's actually Board of Health, through County Board of Health, he has 6 cameras, and at one point we had 4 of them down here in East Miami because we met with Jeff regarding issues of mattresses and such down there. Believe it or not, we still have 2 cameras that are there currently. I won't say on air where they are, but just because of the continual dumping in that area, and we've been successful in, you know, getting them into court for their dumpings. Now, yeah, Raj, whenever, you know, as long as the cameras are available, we will do that. Like I said in Gulf Manor, when we went and met with the police chief and their administration as well, he put a camera up, and it didn't come to me. They had an employee that, you know, they thought that could do it and wanted to do it. So, I mean, you know, I helped her along the way as far as the guidelines to get them into court, or if they wanted to keep it in, you know, mayor's court.
Yeah, Brian, I know, you know, I serve on the solid waste committee, and we got the financial statement. We have considerable money right now. For you to one person run the whole township is very hard. You know, we know that. And you mentioned about 80% time you spend on the city, and people like a large township, Colerain, other township, you know, we don't have that resource. I wonder, another part-time officers, what's your shift? Is it day shift or rotate?
I typically work day shift, but
Yeah.
if I need to adjust into the evening, Raj, or if I'm having a hard time finding, let's say, a vehicle or a person's
Yeah.
because they're working normal hours,
Yeah.
I will adjust late. But yeah, typically I'm a 7 to 3 guy.
Maybe I can bring it up on the next solid waste committee meeting, have another part-time sheriff, deputy sheriff will hire, patrolling what you do, will help, kind of.
I would love it. I mean, it's just,
they have
I
money.
mean, in theory, everything is great, but like I said, you know, people call me and say, hey, they have 15 tires here on this piece of property. Well, like I said, I'm not the tire collector myself. I'm the investigator that would investigate that. If someone have a means or a photograph or, you know, a copy of a plate that I could follow up and say, hey, look, or, you know, something that would deem them responsible. But yeah, there's a big fallacy in calling Bryan. They think that I'm going to walk around like the Michelin Man with all the tires and take them to Rumpke or somewhere. You know what I mean? I mean, that's not the reality of it. But as far as assistance, absolutely. Or being the segue, like I've helped here in the township before with the zoning issues, with the criminal aspect on the ones down on East Miami. I've just cited them right to court for, you know, the dumpings. Absolutely. But yeah, and it's the last 3 months, Raj, have been it's been snowballing.
Yeah.
I think we definitely need that, especially to cover the township, maybe part-time. Most of the dumping happening during the nighttime, you know, during that.
You're exactly right, and believe it or not, Springfield Township is calling upon my assistance for quite a few things, and once I told them, you know, how we do it, then they bought their own cameras and installed them as well, and I'm not talking something, I mean, high profile, we're talking $100 to $130, all intents and purposes, trail cameras to, you know, follow up on, and as long as they don't grab them and steal them from you, that works fine, believe it or not. Yeah, it's just a lot. I mean, now that folks are knowing that the position is there and knowing that that's what I do, I mean, they call upon me for, you know, all of those facets from the tires all the way down to even open burnings, because if it's solid waste and if it's an open burn solid waste, that's an unclassified felony if what they're burning is deemed to be a solid waste.
Yeah, it's getting bad, you know. Thanks for all the work you do.
One other thing too, I mean, and just, you know, Chief, for if needed, if the Board of Health, we inspect the tire shops, and I think there's probably more than a handful up and down Colerain Avenue, but even the car dealerships, because there's a manner in which they're expected to have their tires stacked inside for fire purposes. It has to be so far down from the ceiling in case the building would catch on fire. But then in addition, if they have outside storage, It's expected to be covered unless they have weekly pickup and those type of things. So I have a generic form that's the state generic form, and I go around with the Board of Health folks, but if you would call upon me and say, hey, Bryan, can you go with one of my patrolmen? We need to inspect this place. Can you go with him so we can articulate facts as far as the means by which he's storing it inside or outside, whether it's legit or not, or what's expected? That's another arm of, you know, what this job entails. I mean, if it would come to that, you know what I mean? Or if you would have problems with a shop, or if you would think that this shop is accumulating way too many tires and this looks horrible, and your zoning guys don't, you know, I mean, I do that frequently as well.
Officer Peak, thanks for coming out. I just had one just overarching question. So what other methods of deterrence? You mentioned the trail cameras and people just knowing you're out there, and I think that something like this we can probably get up on our website so that people know, so that township residents know who to call. And once we start this reporting, I think that'll be a deterrent as well. But what other deterrents have you seen successful in trying to reduce this?
I will be honest with you, Matt, that when I was a young patrolman, I had no idea that more than 10 tires in a car constituted unclassified felony. And here, when I've helped here, I mean, I pass it on to a couple of your sergeants down at the range, and they were unaware either. I think just the eyes and knowing, Matt, as far as what constitutes a problem, what doesn't. Or we get calls all the time of people, you know, if you have a 4-family and you have a put out, meaning that, you know, you own a 4-family and you had to evict this person and you pay somebody $250 to come clean out, you know, unit number 4, they don't take it to Rumpke. They're going to find the closest alley, street, or whatever. So just being vigilant. I am the environmental unit, but I will tell you this environmental unit is a unit of 1.
Right.
So the cameras work. We've had very good success with the cameras, and like I said, that's not a big expense because you can get a decent, you know, trail camera for anywhere from $100 to $150.
Okay.
Just the education purposes as well, Matt. Just knowing that, you know, pick up the phone, call me. My email's on the bottom of that placard. You know what I mean? I mean, I'll help, you know, whoever, whatever. This is a county paid position so that I can go anywhere in the county and help, you know, whomever needs the help.
Okay, thank you.
Also, you can give citation to anywhere in the county.
Excuse me?
You can also give a citation to anywhere in the county.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Raj.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Brian, we got a lot of complaints in Colerain Avenue. The old Kroger shut down.
Yeah.
People dumping.
Yeah.
And if you get chance to drive by that area, that's the biggest thing right now going on the old Kroger store.
The one south of Banning?
Yeah, it's off of, you know, the Blue Rock.
6401 Colerain.
Yeah.
It was completely cleaned up 2 weeks ago, and somebody's dumped a
Still
couch. in it.
dumping.
So on your all's end, who does your township have to go and clean that up, or do you put that on the property owner?
Our zoning department cites them, gives them a period of time to clean it up, and then we'll vote on it at the next meeting, and we'll abate it and use a vendor, and then attach the cost to the next tax bill, or however you attach the cost.
That's right.
Okay, that's typical. That's quite typical.
But
I
it
just didn't
takes a
know.
while to get
Yes.
that done,
Yes.
because we're following the law, and it
And
just
if it's
takes
sitting there and
time,
it still
so.
continues to look bad. if nobody
Alternatively,
addresses it.
we'll reach out because we have a pretty good relationship with the owner at this point. We'll reach out and say, hey, this is going to a nuisance abatement resolution. Can you abate this before we do? And that's been successful up to now, but it just keeps coming. It's really great to hear from your perspective, Mr. Peak, that that this has ratcheted up in the last 3 months, because that has been my perspective too. As I mentioned in our last special meeting, other township administrators are saying that this is happening, not just in Colerain, but in other townships in Hamilton County. So we really appreciate the work that you do. And I think one of the things that we'll talk about later on in this agenda are, Mr. Peak is one resource. There are multiple ways that we can address the littering and dumping problem, and we'll talk more about that later on in the agenda. I really appreciate your work, Mr. Peak.
And I don't know, do you still like to cite on a minor misdemeanor? Yeah. You do? Yeah, see, if it's not something excessive, unfortunately, I cite under the revised code, which is an M4 for littering, even though it doesn't fall, it falls under littering statutes, but sometimes I scratch my head because it's so much. I'm like, man, I'd like to get, something with a little bit more bite. I have been granted permission. It doesn't affect, obviously, the township, but if it's in the city of Cincinnati, I cite under their municipal code, which, believe it or not, is an M1. So, yeah, but that's, obviously their city municipal code. So typically I cite for misdemeanor for unlawful dumping there. And if it's something that's solid waste under the solid waste law and letter of the law, then it ups the ante as well. And it becomes something more serious. But unfortunately, if it's not, and if it's just garbage, junk, trash bags, construction debris, or like yard waste, I mean that's typically what I cite under it for.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for
Absolutely.
coming. That's very informative, your
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mills.
Very good. The next presentation that we have this evening is one that fortunately doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's a big deal. Our next presentation is the swearing in of our new fire chief, Chief Alan Walls. Mr. Walls joins us as only the 4th fire chief in the history of the Colerain Township Fire Department. So it is a big deal, and we'll invite Mr. Walls in now.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Walls. How are you this evening?
Great, how are you?
Great. Discussed having now retired Chief Cook swear you in, but apparently you need to be sworn in by an active public official, and what an honor that you've given me. Congratulations for reaching this point in your life and your career. Please repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Alan Walls,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and its bylaws.
and its bylaws.
I will abide by the Colerain Township Department of Fire and Emergency Medical Services mission statement. I will abide by the Colerain Township
Township Department of Fire and Emergency Medical Services mission statement,
values,
values,
code of ethics,
code of ethics,
standard operating guidelines,
standard operating guidelines,
and the township's policies and procedures,
and the township's policies and procedures.
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of fire chief
And I will faithfully discharge the duties of fire chief
in and for Colerain Township,
in and for Colerain Township,
Hamilton County,
Hamilton County,
State of Ohio,
State of Ohio,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Thank you, Chief Walls. Did you have any comments? And I think if I'd like it, if you would introduce your mother. Sure.
So real quick, obviously, there's a lot of thank yous, and probably more than we have time for tonight, but most importantly, my family. And so my wife Tia, my mother Sharon, and my brother Bryan. And so they're oftentimes the unsung or the behind the scenes persons who sacrifice a lot while we do what we do. And so without, a family, we couldn't be and do what we do. In addition, our children. So we have 4 grown men and a grown daughter, 3 of which have served in the United States Army in the last 19 years during the War on Terror. And on top of that, then, I'd like to thank Chief Cook and retired Chief Smith for being great mentors in my career here. In addition, I'd like to thank the men and women who day in and day out here in Colerain Township do the job that they do to make a difference in the world as we know it. Likewise, friends and colleagues, and then all of you who have bestowed upon me faith in being the fire chief. And so it's not something that I take lightly. And so quickly then about the fire department. So we have a moral compass called our values, both humanistically, action-oriented, and organizational. And then we have a mission statement, which is kind of the what and the why about what we do. And then looking at some action-oriented statements then, as an organization, we should be adaptable, proactive, innovative, and focused on continuous improvement. In addition, we should provide non-traditional programs that benefit the community at large. We should work on enriching the engagement of all of our employees. And then we should enhance the alignment that we have with the community that deepens our solidarity and connection for the common good. And, most of all, we're here to make a difference. And so, success. Success is something that doesn't come easy, but nothing that's worthwhile is, quite frankly. And so along the way, I could talk about a bachelor's degree and advanced degree in organizational leadership, having strong mentors, graduating from the National Fire Academy Executive Fire Officer Program, having a great honor bestowed upon me, and that being the A. Don Mano Award for an outstanding applied research project where I delved into response times here in Colerain Township. And then ranks of firefighter EMT, firefighter paramedic, captain, division chief, battalion chief, assistant chief ×2, and now fire chief. And so success has been very good to me. However, I don't spend a lot of time, honestly, thinking and talking about success because I think the greatest measure of a person's worth is significance. Significance being what we do with our success and how we can change the world by making a difference. And so with that then, I think a great deal about what God has bestowed upon me and how I can make a difference in the lives of others, and that's with passion and purpose. And so passion, unfortunately, is sometimes fleeting, and it can cause us to have strong and barely controllable emotions. And we've witnessed that here in the township. Unfortunately, we've lost too many, too soon, and at too young of an age. And we all know those names. However, then, when we move on to purpose, I know that my purpose is to make a difference in the lives of others every single day that I'll have in my tenure here as your servant and fire chief. And so, if we think about Galatians 6:10, being mindful to be a blessing. So, wherever we go and whatever we do, we should be mindful to bless others in our conversation and actions, and just think about the difference that we can all make in the world. And so I'm proud to be a part of all of that with all of you, and thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Chief.
Chief, congratulations.
Yeah, I don't know what we're supposed to do, so.
Congratulations, Chief.
Chief.
And take a minute to enjoy that success, because you've earned it, sir.
If you could bring that up here, Chief, we need to sign that. Jeff, is that something we need to sign?
Yeah, I can put it in your box, in your signature box, if we don't have it right here. Yeah, I'll get you. That's fine. Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Well, great. Well, congratulations and to the whole fire department. I think you've got an excellent leader coming on board, and I look forward to continued great things. So, thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for your service. Thank you so much. It's appreciated.
Great. And the next item.
Yep. Okay. Next item is is another swearing in. This time of Police Sergeant Dean Doerflein.
You did such a good job. Do you want to do it again?
No, you just, apparently you need to have a public official, and since Frank is a civilian, which you'll get there someday.
This means something, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, you're still active, so,
Oh,
right?
very.
Okay. No, that's a real honor to get to do that. There's a lot of things that happen at trustee meetings, and it's not all that much fun sometimes. That's the best thing yet. So there's plenty more good stuff to come.
Good evening, Board. Tonight, we're going to swear in Dean Doerflein as our newest sergeant. Dean began his career with the police department exactly 9 years ago, within maybe a few days here and there. Prior to coming to Colerain Township, Dean worked for the Warren County Sheriff's Office, Arlington Heights Police Department, and the Union Township Police Department. And prior to all that, Dean was also a member of the Colerain Township Department of Fire and EMS. Dean has served as a school resource officer, detective, and now fills the role as a sergeant overseeing the school resource officers, and is the district's safety investigator. On a personal note, this kind of has some special meaning to me. Dean's father, Herb, is here in the back. Herb was a friend and mentor to me in my formative years as a police officer. We worked many night shifts together, and he was my only backup. He's one of the best cops I've ever worked with, so I know that Dean's got a good person to counsel and to guide him in the right way. So, Dean's wife, Jennifer, is going to do the honors of pinning his badge if she wants to step forward. Come on up. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Dean Doerflein.
I, Dean Doerflein,
Do solemnly swear.
do solemnly swear
I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio and its bylaws.
the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and its bylaws.
I will abide by the Colerain Police Department mission and value statement,
I will abide by the Colerain Township Police Department mission and value statement,
code of ethics,
code of ethics,
rules and regulations,
rules and regulations,
and policy and procedures.
and policy and procedures.
I will faithfully discharge the duties
I will faithfully discharge the duties
of police sergeant
of police sergeant
in and for Colerain Township,
in and for Colerain
Hamilton
Township,
County,
Hamilton County,
State of Ohio,
State of Ohio,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, sir.
I don't.
Thank you for your service. Congratulations to you.
Congratulations, Sergeant.
Thank you.
Sergeant Doerflein?
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Safer for when you become chief.
Fantastic. Next item, Mr. Mills.
Well, that feels good. Okay, the next item is a presentation of a retirement proclamation to Firefighter Paramedic Jerome W. Robinson, but everybody knows him as Jerry. Now that that group is cleared out, we can invite Jerry in. I know. Mr. Unger, do you have the proclamation there in your? Here, I can pull a copy.
Say, I think you have it.
Yep. Oh, you've got it. Okay, very good. Chief Walls?
So at this time, we'd like to present retired firefighter Jerry Robinson with a proclamation, but I'm requesting that retired Chief Cook, whom Jerry retired under during his tenure, come and do the proclamation, please.
Thank you, Chief Walls.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. Guess you thought you were seeing the last of me.
I don't even recognize you. They took your name off the office door already.
Jerry, after 38 years, you've made it to retirement. Jerry has been so part of so many changes in this department over your 38 years. You've served under 3 different chiefs. You've seen the transition or been part of the transition from volunteer staffing to part-time staffing or career staffing and paramedic service. You've seen the addition of a 5th station.
and several changes and improvements in our ISO class rating. You know, you've probably gone all the way from a 4 to see us down to an ISO class 1 rating. So after 38 years, you've been so much part of this, or the fabric of this department. You know, 38 years is absolutely amazing. You know, you were one of 3 employees that were left in this department that transitioned from volunteer to our current staffing model. And on a personal note, Jerry, I certainly can't thank you enough for the support that you've given me as fire chief and seeing my vision through as fire chief. And on behalf of a very grateful township, our elected officials and our administrative staff, and the entire fire department, congratulations on 38 years of faithful service.
I will go ahead and read the proclamation so we can have it as an item. Proclamation for Firefighter Paramedic Jerome W. Robinson for his years of dedicated service to Colerain Township, Ohio. Whereas Firefighter Paramedic Jerome W. Robinson was hired on May 16th of 1982 as an employee of the Colerain Township Department of Fire and Emergency Medical Services, and whereas Firefighter Paramedic Jerome W. Robinson has demonstrated professionalism, allegiance, service, commitment, and excellence through his contributions as a firefighter, emergency medical technician, paramedic, leader, program manager, employee, and friend during his tenure with the department, and whereas Firefighter Paramedic Jerome W. Robinson retired on August 31st, 2020, after more than 38 years of commendable dedication to providing fire protection, emergency medical, and community risk reduction services. To turn off the extra mic, to the Colerain Township community. There we go. I think I'll get their last. Whereas Firefighter Paramedic Jerome W. Robinson retired on August 31st, 2020, after more than 38 years of commendable dedication to providing fire protection, emergency medical, and community risk reduction services to the Colerain Township community. Therefore, be it resolved that the Colerain Township Board of Trustees recognizes Firefighter Paramedic Jerome W. Robinson as an outstanding employee and that he contributed greatly to our community during his long tenure of public service. Be it further resolved that in recognition of all that Firefighter Paramedic Jerome W. Robinson has done for Colerain Township, the Colerain Township Board of Trustees hereby proclaim Tuesday, September 8th, 2020, as a special day of recognition for Jerome W. Robinson to acknowledge his contributions to our community and wish him continued success in retirement. And I would need a motion to approve this.
I will motion to approve the resolution as presented by Mr. Unger.
And do we have a second?
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Thank you so much for your service. It's humbling to be in this room with people that have given so many years to public service. It's, I think, just uniquely American. I think it just makes me proud. And thank you so much for everyone here that's provided service. But 38 years is just incredible. And like Chief said, you've seen an awful lot of changes and been a part of it. And I appreciate that as a citizen. So thank you so much for what you've done.
Sir, your 38 years of service made a significant difference in our township. Your dedication is played important role, made our township fire department one of the best in the country. So thank you for all your service for our community.
And I would concur. Congratulations on a long and exceptional career. Did you want to introduce your guest that you have with you?
My wife of 40 years.
Of 40 years, so you started in second year into marriage?
Yes.
That's great. And you're still here. That's awesome.
We also have our one son, Kyle. Our oldest is in Kansas. He's been out there in part of the Army, Fort Bragg, Kansas. He's been in the Army for the last 17 years.
Wow.
and you can take a nice long ride out to Kansas and go see him more often now. So congratulations. And we'll go ahead and sign this, and thank you so much, and I'm sure you're going to do great things in the next phase of your life. So
Thank you for letting us have him for 38 years. Now you can get him back.
now he is yours. Well, congratulations.
Congratulations.
And if you want to, I guess he can pick this up later. Okay, thank you. And after they dismiss the next item, Mr. Mills?
Yes, sir. Give everybody an opportunity to exit here.
The color doesn't matter, does it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Our next presentation will be given by Mr. Mike Iona of the Planning Department. It is a presentation of the Colerain Township and Colerain Community Association's Yard Award for 2020. Mike? Mike Iona on Teams.
I know, but it's feeding back into him. This one at the podium, Mark, because it picks up all that and just keeps.
That's ambient noise.
All right, Mike, can you get? No. Okay.
Hello.
Okay. Okay. Do we have a copy of his presentation that we can do locally? Okay.
We could turn it off and turn it back on again.
Well, we could blow on it. Hey, Mike, it appears that it's your microphone that is giving feedback. Okay. Okay. All right. I'm going to...
An external microphone problem, so I think I'd
Okay.
like to go on to the next item, and maybe Mr. Weckbach can get a copy of that presentation for us to read into the record.
Great. Okay, that was the last item on the presentations, and we move now to citizens' address. I received via the website, I received one comment, and I distributed that to the 3 trustees and fiscal officer. Mr. Weckbach, was anybody signed in to speak at citizens' address?
Yes, one person.
Okay, Mr. Miller is here, has signed in. Would you like me to start with him?
I can go ahead and do the other one while.
Okay. Okay.
You got to turn your mic on.
Right. Okay, so we have 2 citizens' address, one that was submitted via email, and the other one is from a gentleman who's being brought into the room currently, so we'll start with the email one. It is from Kathy Moore. It was sent to 2 of our trustees, Matt Wallert and Raj Rajagopal, and I was not copied on it, which is very similar to the situation back on July 28th and numerous other times when requests to speak at the meeting are sent to only 2 of the 3 trustees. And I would just caution my fellow trustees to watch out responding to these electronically, because it looks like it's an attempt to create a meeting. And I would ask anybody that's sending emails to the trustees to send them individually only to 1 trustee, because we don't want to put ourselves anywhere near the position where we would be creating an electronic meeting and therefore a violation of any meeting laws. So Mrs. Moore, if you would please only send these to 1 trustee at a time rather than 2, leaving the 3rd one out. Anyway, moving right along. Meeting topics, September 8th, 2020, from Kathy Moore. Please read and answer all questions. A month ago, there was an opening for a full-time fleet mechanic, which is now removed from the job postings. Who left this position, and has an employee been hired to this position? Who is the employee? When did they begin employment, and what is their pay? I don't recall this being approved at a meeting. If replaced, what is the name of the employee, the date of hire, and salary? This should be included in the minutes. Where is the transparency? And I'll let you answer these during your administrative report. I think we voted on all that during the consent items.
Okay.
Second item, I'd like to request, which this may be in Robert's Rules of Order, that the Board of Trustees approve the resignation in a public meeting of a departing employee. And of course, approve a new employee hired with their date of hire and salary pay. All employees should submit a resignation or a letter stating the reason they are departing. The township fails this process. It's all public record, so you need to make it public. Trustees, your comments. Item 3, regarding money received under the CARES Act, what expenses is the township being reimbursed for specifically? Number 4, regarding the contract with SMBP, this is ridiculous to award this contract this early. Why doesn't the township advertise and take quotes from different firms as was done prior? Under this firm, a trustee violated an ethics law on a conflict of interest. Mr. Barbier and Mr. Unger coaxed him to vote on this conflict of interest, and he followed their advice. Bad advice. Mr. Barbier consulted with former fiscal officer about $60,000 overpaid to the IRS and concluded that no refund would be applied for. Bad advice. This is $60,000 that would go back to the fire department. It appears you have no problem with giving money away, but do not act on legally getting money reimbursed caused by the negligence of former employees. And now you are asking for more money from residents through a fire levy on the November ballot. You just tossed $60,000 out the window. This should have been refunded years ago. Your comments on these subjects. Item 5. When is the township going to take action on commercial vacant property introduced by Mr. Mills in 2013 but was never enacted? Again, we are losing money from these businesses. The township would receive plenty of money for the vacant properties, but allow the businesses a pass while concentrating on residential properties. If anyone in the department goes down Colerain Avenue, the violations are easily visible. This has been neglected for far too long. Number 6, in the minutes of July 28th, Bruce Pirano sent his comments about the Rumpke contract. He stated the current contract is the correct approach if Springfield and Ross Townships agree. However, the minutes reflect his statement as Springdale instead of Springfield Township. Please correct those minutes. Number 7, regarding the promotion of an officer to support services sergeant approved August 11th, the agenda packet states that the employee will be paid by the NWLSD, which is Northwest Local School District. The job description and resolution state the position provides direct supervision of the specialized school units, but says nothing about being funded by the school. What is the salary for this new position? For clarification, is the school paying total compensation for this employee, salary plus all benefits, all taxes, retirement contributions, etc., using no township funds for this position? Number 8, applying for an ODOT permit for I-275 improvements. What exact improvements? Number 9, regarding the TransUnion contract, what is the cost to the township? A subscriber agreement was approved, but no cost to the township. And there are 2 attachments. One is a presentation. It's got a stamp that says approved September 8th, 2020 on it. And I don't know if that's our stamp or not. It says swearing in of Sergeant Dean Doerflein. And the comment on it is was this paid for by the school district? The salary, question mark, effective date, question mark. And the other one that has been submitted has a stamp on it that says approved August 11th. I don't know if that's our stamp. I'd have to ask Mr. Mills.
It is not.
Okay. And it says administration, Jeff Mills, administrator, resolution amending organizational chart and job roster. Recommend adoption of a resolution amending the township organizational chart and position roster. Rationale, this motion will create a new support services sergeant position in the police department. This position is being paid for by the Northwest Local School District. There will be no increase in staffing as a result of this addition. The existing district safety officer that was in the agreement with the district prior to the newly approved agreement was changed to a supervisory position. And I have read these comments into the record. And the next speaker will be Keith Miller. If you'd like to approach and adjust the microphone, Keith. Welcome to our meeting.
I really just didn't have much to say. I just wanted to wish Chief Cook good luck in his retirement, and which I did outside already. But I still have questions on why we're 2 meetings a month and we're still pulling special meetings. Don't you think that people know that there's something going on? People tried to change this township. We didn't get change. And I look at, special meetings tell me the Gang of Two still exists. And you know who you are. I don't have to say it. So, everybody wanted change. And I went down there and I got my oil changed at Goodyear, so I got to check out that property there at Duke a little bit better. It's not fenced off separately, but it's fenced off awful funny down there. And Duke's got 2 driveways coming out of there, one straight in line with the street light that's going to be there. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a street light there someday. Right there, what is that, Harry Lee?
Right.
I believe there's going to be a street light there someday.
I don't know that the traffic count calls for that. I don't know how that ended up, but go on, please.
How did McDonald's get a street light and Harry Lee not? I never could figure that out. McDonald's and it was the fabric store then when they got a street light. So you go south of Galbraith, or north of Galbraith, you got 3 street lights with the one at 275 Walmart. And you go south, you got nothing. After Galbraith Road, there's nothing. So that traffic's never been slowed down through there, ever. We're talking about want to change the road to solve the problem. That's not the problem. Who watches Colerain Avenue? Is that the state of Ohio or is that our township?
It's a state road.
That's what I thought, They need to be more presence on it, That'll cut down on accidents. Just police presence will cut down on accidents.
Our township patrols it, but the road is maintained by the state of Ohio. It's US 27.
Well, I know the state, I don't know exactly how it works, but I know on 275 or across county, if you don't have, on a highway period, you don't have so many miles of highway in your township, you can't sit a patrol car on it. The state has to. That's why there's cross county's been changed, where Springfield Township used to sit up there all the time. They got thrown off because they only got 1/8 of a mile through the, of their township. And I'm not sure exactly how many miles it is, but you gotta have so many miles before you can sit a cruiser on a highway. So, but I'm sure that's not true with Colerain Avenue, because that's different type than a highway. So, but I think a little bit more police presence. I've been on an accident on Colerain Avenue, Colerain and Galbraith. No matter what you change lanes for, you can't change bad driving. You know what I'm saying? No matter what you do, you can't change bad driving. So, that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to move on out of here.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank the Lord. Thank you so much. And we'll speak to you later.
Okay, take care, Keith. And did we have any other requests to speak?
No, sir.
I only had the one from Kathy Moore, and did you guys receive anything from anybody else?
How about the Jim Atkins, on the email from Jim Atkins? He wants to know.
Mike?
Your microphone,
The 275.
Raj.
Jim Atkins, know what's going on with the 275, the science project.
I think that's coming up in the agenda.
Agenda.
Not the sign. The sign you're talking about the letters?
Yeah.
There hasn't been, the board has not come to consensus that I've heard on what to do about that.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay, great. And then that would conclude the citizens' address. So the next item is administrative reports.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Unger. We'll start our administrative reports, it looks like, with fire. Mr. Walls, Chief Walls. And we should have these.
Hello, Chief Walls.
Good evening.
Chief, welcome back.
Now I feel like I can take a deep breath.
Seemed kind of nervous
Nervous,
before.
Chief?
Now that it's sunk in.
I'm sure it'll sink in more.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. But it was great to have my mother's never been able to attend a ceremony such as this, so it was great to have my mother here. In fact, it's her and my father's 56th wedding anniversary today.
Wow.
There you go.
Congrats.
That this is a very important moment for you, Chief.
Absolutely.
Your ultimate dream come true.
Well,
And I don't want it to be the high point either. I want the high point to be down the road.
absolutely,
So-
absolutely. But yeah, it was great to have my mother here. I wish my father could have been here, but her being here, and my brother for that matter, was really a blessing, for lack of a better way to put it. So for August, emergency incident activity, in the month of August, there were 767 EMS incidents, and there were 159 fire incidents. Within the contract area of Springfield Township and the Pleasant Run area, there were 26 incidents. As far as significant incidents, there was a building fire August the 30th, 2020 in the 10,200 block of Snowflake Lane, which is in the Beavis neighborhood, with a loss of $45,000. And then loss for the month was at $58,400. Our incident response time, so the average response time for the arrival of the first unit was 5 minutes and 11 seconds. And our first unit scene time that was less than 6 minutes was 69.6%. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Chief.
Sure.
Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Weckbach, what is the next department down there? Police. All right, Chief Denny.
Hello again. The August Police Department activity report, we had 3,680 calls for service. That's, we're averaging about 118 calls per day. That gives you an idea how busy these guys are. They made 261 traffic stops, 100 arrests, and 7 of those were for DUI. And the average response time was 9.9 minutes on all calls put together. If you look at emergency calls, it shrinks considerably. It's 2 to 3 minutes usually response time, but we add every call into that number just to kind of keep a gauge to make sure we're making improvements on that. As you know, we had significant violent crimes in July and August. We had 4 shootings where people were shot, and one of those was a homicide. Our detectives worked harder than I've ever seen anybody work. They put hundreds of overtime hours in doing interviews and digging up evidence and suspects, and they made arrests out of 3 of the 4 of the shootings. The 4th shooting, the victim refuses to cooperate with us or tell us who shot him, so our chances of solving that are difficult when your victim doesn't even want to help. They just did a tremendous job, and they continue to work long hours preparing the cases for prosecution. So I just wanted to take a second to acknowledge their hard work over the last few months and how proud they made us.
Absolutely.
Thank you. You mentioned 9 DUIs. How does that compare to other periods?
7.
7 DUIs. That's a little down. You can look at the chart. We have some months pre-COVID that were much more.
I see.
We average over 100 a year usually. There's certainly more out there, but we.
And how do those develop? Is it a call-in, or you watch somebody drive by, or following somebody, or?
Probably every hour somebody will anonymously call in a DUI suspect. That's not enough evidence to stop them, but it does give us an idea to go in that area. But unfortunately, a large number of crashes, we find them after the fact. So there are probably about half.
So some of those aren't, you pulled somebody over. Some of them are, there was a crash and you responded and somebody was intoxicated.
Yes. Yeah. Most crashes at night, they have some alcohol involved, unfortunately.
Okay.
Hey, Chief, thanks our officers for the great investigative work on the homicides. That's a remarkable job. We got the suspect. Also, I want to thank you on the Marcelana, on the street, the Stargill Marcelana has been all this, the ATV that, people noise, and then I think you guys did a great job and calmed the situation there.
It's been very helpful to have the residents call too. I mean,
Yeah,
they're our
yeah.
eyes and ears, and it does make it easier for us to get there.
Yeah, I really appreciate your help on that. Thank you.
Chief, thank you for the hard work that you guys, your force did on the violent crimes. I have received probably no less than a dozen different messages on Facebook and stuff, just thanking you guys for the patrols. People are, it's been an overwhelming, they're like, I see these guys everywhere and I love it. So thanks for I think that's a big deterrent.
And we did a little different scheduling in August, and we're going to look at making that a permanent change. But we had to, we tried out to make sure it works first, and then we'll fall back and see if we get the same results. But
if that becomes permanent, I think you're going to have a lot of people happy. And I had emailed you about this, and I had told you I was going to bring it up too, because I had a number of questions about, I guess, some big dirt bike ride. I was concerned that
I saw that.
Did you really?
There was a bunch of them coming down Colerain Avenue on a Sunday.
Didn't you stop
afternoon.
them and tell them you're a trustee? And
I was actually on northbound Colerain, with a group picking up litter, and there must have been 100 and some bikes, some illegal bikes, some four-wheelers. One fellow was going down the sidewalk, but there was a large group of people.
And that's what concerned me, is a number of people said that they were driving on the grass and that,
This guy missed
through
the
their
light
living
change.
room
Well, this guy missed the light change, and he made up for it by going down the sidewalk, and he was on a four-wheeler.
all right. Well, my concern was that Cincinnati it's been an ongoing problem in Cincinnati, and that's the question I asked you. And hopefully, if you could talk about that, I think it's a one-off, as you indicated.
The officers did stop several people and made contact and got some information about why they were there. It was a one-time event. I think they were congregating at the Northbrook Plaza, and they left from there. We had several refuse to stop. The sergeant made a smart decision not to turn that into a dangerous pursuit over a traffic violation, but we were able to stop several of them and get an idea what was going on, and they got it under control.
I appreciate that, and hopefully that is a one-off, because that ended up scaring a lot of people, I think.
Sunday a week ago, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Hopefully it gets cold soon. That helps us all the time.
Trustee Unger seems to know a lot about this. I'm not saying he organized it.
I don't have a motorcycle license, and I don't have a motorcycle, so I just happened to be out, and I saw him coming down the street, so.
Well, thank you for the information on that, and thank you, Mr. Unger, for the information too. The emails I got kind of were a little bit scary, and again, the extra patrols, people love them. Yeah, they love it. So keep up the good work, and thank you so much for all the hard work you're doing. And I'm going to mention later, I don't know if you can mention it or not, but I'm going to mention later the thing, September 11th, that we'll go to the Back the Blue. So we won't bring that in your report, but I'll talk about it in my trustee report.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. The next administrative report will come from Jackie O'Connell, Director of Public Services, via Teams. We're going to try this one more time. Jackie?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Before I start off with the KPIs, I just want to take a moment to express my appreciation on behalf of myself and the department for the outpouring of sympathy and the support that we received in the passing of Jason Haynes 2 weeks ago. As you know, he was an 18-year employee of the department. He was a valued team member of the Parks Department, and it was a great loss to us. So kudos to the staff that helped and supported us, to the current and former elected officials who reached out, and to the community who reached out to show their support. And Raj, I want to thank you. I wasn't there when you came to visit last week, but the crew appreciated the donuts and the time that you took to acknowledge their loss. So thank you for that. Our KPIs, as you can see, our park visitors are still way up because COVID is still giving everybody limited options, so they're coming out and using our parks, which we're happy about. Our calls for service, a little low last month. They seem to be going down a little bit, I think, because of, I'm not sure why, because early in COVID, everybody who was at home, they were very excited to make sure that we knew about every pothole they had. So the CSRs are a great tool for people to use for anything. You need trees removed, put in a CSR. There's also a form online for it. Your right-of-way permits can now be done online. So we're encouraging everybody to try to go digital as much as they can. It helps us with their data tracking. We've received, I believe, 50 submissions for our veterans banners. So right now we're in the process of trying to vet those because they weren't all complete. So some of them didn't attach the DD214. Some of them didn't give us a good picture that would blow up to make a 2-foot by 4-foot banner. So we're reaching out to everybody to try to get everybody in compliance so we can get the banners ordered. So we can get them up by the end of October, hopefully. The last thing I have tonight is Clifford Park Gates, which has ebbed and flowed since I've been here. The Public Services Department, we've spoken to the Parks crews, the Police Department, the Fire Department. What we would like to do as a temporary solution to see how it works is close the park between Fair Glen and Dew Hill entrances. So you can still get into each entrance. We would permanently close an entrance. You just can't get through the park. You can park on the Fair Glen side, you can park on the Dew Hill side and walk to either side. You just can't drive through. Like I said, I've spoken to both police and fire, and they are in favor of doing that. It's almost a no-cost solution right now to hopefully deter some traffic going through there and some if people are in the parks after night, they think that will help deter that as well. So that is something that we would like to try first before we put in any permanent measures to see how this works. But I would like some guidance from the trustees on that one.
Thank you for looking into that gate issue. I know that that's been an ongoing concern for a number of residents. One thing I did get an email about actually just today or maybe last night. In the past, we had paid residents, I guess, would this be right, $11 a day to lock it?
I don't believe that they were paid. It was a volunteer endeavor, to the best of my knowledge.
Jeff, I do know that back in the day we did pay them. It was an hourly rate that we paid them.
Oh, wow. This would have been years ago then, huh?
This was years ago.
Okay.
At Heritage and Bravo, we had a gentleman
Yes.
do it, from what I understand.
So, so I think I support your idea, seeing how this works, and then maybe that might be a next step if it doesn't, but it's a significant concern for folks in that area, and I know that another concern is we don't want to completely, the whole idea was to connect two neighborhoods. We don't want to eliminate that as well, so that seems to check both those boxes, and let's see if that works, and I'm thankful that we're able to come up with a trial on this and see if it works, and if it doesn't, we can punt and look again, so thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Jackie.
All right, thank you, Jackie. We're going to try the feed from Mr. Iona in the Department of All right, we're going to try again the feed from Mr. Iona in the Department of Planning and Zoning. Mr. Iona, are you there?
I am.
You sound much better. Thank you, sir.
Excellent. So let's see. Bryan Iona here, delivering the numbers report for the Department of Planning and Zoning. Permits are up this year. It's no surprise that as people spend more time at home, they're starting to check things off their honey-do list. So we're seeing a significant uptick in, our accessory structures like fence, decks, sheds. But we're also seeing larger projects like single-family homes continue to rise, in addition to home additions. As it pertains to our BZA and zoning cases, the numbers are down, but as I've stated in previous reports, part of that is about getting the right projects to yes, and other projects to no. Projects that we know that probably don't have a chance of getting approved, we like to spend more time up front, making sure that our applicants are informed so that they can make a decision prior to applying rather than apply and then find out that they get denied. As it pertains to code enforcement violations, as you can tell by the numbers here, those numbers are way up. We continue to get reports. I can tell you that the number one thing that we see in the township, and I'll get to this in my report on code enforcement later tonight, but that is it's just trash and junk, whether that's an inoperable vehicle or junk vehicle, to just general trash, debris, and detritus. So those really are, as well as grass, those are the biggest reports that we get and the biggest case volume we have. I've never seen a jurisdiction that I've worked in have so few actual property maintenance issues compared to the number of just trash and junk vehicles. Abatements this year, our grass abatements, that's the big number there. Our grass abatements are down. People have found out that it doesn't pay to not cut your grass. In fact, it costs you a lot of money. So I think we've got our message through. And while we do continue to do abatements, they are down this year. Housing court referrals are a little bit down, but we continue to work hard to get cases solved before they have to go to the referrals. And that's through diplomacy, whether it's contacting, the property owner, or just continuing to work with that property owner to get things done before we have to take it to court. But, we still do have a considerable number of housing court referrals when compared to, just 8, 9, 10 years ago. But that's it. That's all I have for my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Not at this time. Did you want to pick him up for the presentation.
Mike, are you able to share your screen and deliver that
Yeah.
presentation with Ms. Speicher again?
I would love to do that.
I think there's a technical.
Here.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and redo the presentation that we had the technical difficulties on earlier.
Your mic's on.
Do you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
And Mike, if you could go share a full screen on that. There we go. Thank you, sir.
Is that good?
Perfect.
Okay, it's running a little bit. Can you see the front screen then?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
the
well,
screen with the
thank you
Asiatic
all.
lily.
It is my pleasure, on behalf of Colerain Township, on behalf of the CCA organization, to present the CCA Yard Award for the year of 2020. The CCA Yard Award is a program that allows residents and property owners to be rewarded for their hard work that they take in maintaining and creating beautiful landscaping and scenery within Colerain Township. Again, the Colerain Community Association, the CCA, does handle this program, and the Colerain Township administration administers the program. And the judging criteria is that residents are allowed to nominate up to 2 properties in the township, and that nomination window concluded earlier this year in July. And the CCA organization judges each of the nominations based on overall appearance, tidiness, and neatness of the property, as evidenced by the pruned, trimmed, and shaped foliage, as well as the edged and defined lawn borders and flower beds, as well as creating an overall visually appealing facade. This year, there were 6 nominees. The nominees are as follows: 3783 Hanley Road, 3981 Blue Heron, 5758 Chapel Heights, 2720 Geraldine Drive, 6167 Sheets Road, and finally 8631 Livingston. We had a very wonderful group of nominees. There can only be one winner, and that is, drum roll please. It would be 2720 Geraldine, and the property owners are Charlie and Rose Speicher. As you can tell, the Speicher residents really takes pride in the work they do and in the garden that they have at their house located at 2720 Geraldine. If you're gardeners, you know that by looking at these photos, this doesn't just happen overnight or over 1 year. This is many years of cultivation and efforts that the Speichers have taken into cultivating, the garden on their property. And I would say, there's a lot of pride that they take, not just in their garden, but also in their community and neighborhood as a whole. Again, I think that the pièce de résistance of the garden would be this kind of large photo you see here on this slide. But there's also a wonderful element on the other side of the yard that's a little more shaded, and you can see some of the shade species on the 2 right pictures on the screen. And Rose and Charlie did have something that they wanted to share with us after they were notified. So when we all of the winners are notified, obviously, of their victory, but then they also receive a plaque that they can put in their yard. When we notified Rose and Charlie, they were ecstatic and thrilled. But they also wanted to have us read something in, and they said that we are so honored to receive this award. We'd like to thank the kind township resident who nominated us and the CCA for choosing our garden. We appreciate everything they do to make our township more beautiful. We'd be remiss not to give credit to the premier garden centers near us: White Oak Garden Center, Joe Capel's Garden Center, and Northgate Greenhouse. The owners and expert staff are so helpful, and their plants are top-notch. Without them, our garden wouldn't grow. Our perennial garden is a 30-year-old labor of love It has been a healthy hobby and good therapy for us, and we encourage all residents to visit these wonderful businesses and create your own garden oasis. Rose and Charlie Speicher.
Very good.
So that is all that I have for the presentation of the CCA Yard Award. I'd love to thank all the nominees for all the work that they do, not just in getting nominated, but on an annual basis to promote the viability of their street, community, and the township as a whole. And especially congratulations to Rose and Charlie Speicher on their winning of the 2020 CCA Yard Award.
And congratulations to them.
Yes, thank you. Congratulations. What a job they've done on that. Wow.
It's amazing work. So lots of work to
Yes, sir.
landscape, flowers,
Great.
beautiful.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Iona. That sounded
Thanks, Mike.
That sounded much better. Thank you, sir. All right. For my administrative report, I wanted to take a few minutes to share some good news that I received last week, and then it was sort of made public today. The Colerain Township Community Improvement Corporation, as those of you who attend these meetings and watch these meetings know, is an organization that exists to improve Colerain Township by buying, selling, and holding property, among other things. That organization has taken some heat over the years, as you all are aware, but it feels especially validating to receive, as we did today, news that the audit for the CIC is complete. The audit report contained no findings. It contained no items in the management report, and it contained no verbal recommendations for improvement. It is as clean an audit as can be. In addition, the new auditor of state, Mr. Faber, has started a STARS rating system for transparency. So in addition to the biennial audit, we received a transparency audit. And as you all will recall, oftentimes the Colerain Township CIC is scrutinized for, and claims are made that we are not transparent. According to the Auditor of State, they have created a 4-star rating system for transparency. And we have earned 4 stars in our transparency audit. And I wanted to share with you, if you go to ohioauditor.gov and navigate to their STARS website, which I have up on the screen here, you can see Colerain Township CIC. And you can see actually all of the organizations that have been audited this year, and you can see that we have earned 4 stars. In order to get 4 stars, you need to have employed 5 of 7 best practices, and be in compliance with the Open Meetings Act and the Public Records Act. As you'll see here, when you click on these stars, we have checked all 7 boxes. There is no way for, according to the State of Ohio Auditor, that we could employ more best practices for transparency in the way that we do business. You'll see at the bottom here that it says this entity, the Colerain Township Community Improvement Corporation, this entity has received the highest achievement in Open and Transparent Government Award. The highest achievement in Open and Transparent Government Award. I've got to tell you, I know this as an individual who's close to the organization, as the executive director for the last 2 years. I know the work that we do and how we do it. I know that we strive day in and day out to do good work and to do it transparently, and it feels good to be validated by the Ohio Auditor of State. So I did want to share that good news, and the audit is now available on the auditor's website, as is the transparency audit.
And that was for the years 2018, 2019, which the audit's always a little bit in arrears, so.
Yes, sir. So,
Fantastic.
yeah. Congratulations to the
The same CIC that we heard so much negative about for the last 2 years, and when the professionals at the auditor's office look at it, they come up with an entirely different conclusion than some of the feedback we received.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It's important to look at facts, is what I deduce from that. Okay, so I take it that you would like for me to respond
Yes,
to...
there were some questions that were asked during the public presentation part of the meeting.
Very good. Ms. Moore asks 8 questions here, or 9 questions, so I'll work through that. The first one, related to a full-time fleet mechanic. Who left this position? Gary Shepard left that position. Has an employee been rehired to this position? No. And everyone will know when an employee is hired because our hiring policy requires that to come to the Board of Trustees. So the Board of Trustees is who does the hiring, so that'll be included on an agenda in the future if we find a candidate. Okay, she's asked, where is the transparency? It is on our website. Number 2, I'd like to request that the Board of Trustees approve the resignation of a departing employee. It's all public record. They should state in a letter the reason that they're departing. So I don't quite understand how that would work. If, for example, somebody were to resign and the board were to not take action on the resignation or decline the resignation, I don't know what that person would still be resigned. It's not within the power of the board to prevent a resignation. So we do ask for an exit interview, but as you can imagine, sometimes people leave and they don't want to do an exit interview. That's just how it is.
Mr. Mills, let me ask you a question on that.
Yep.
Sorry. So I've been at both. So at school boards, and I don't know how when you were at Northwest, but they do approve the resignations of and approve the hiring of. It's within the same. But I've also been at other bodies that don't. What's the difference? Is it just I mean, in North College Hill, we didn't approve anybody's resignation, but on some of the school boards, I said we do.
Yeah.
Is this, maybe this is for Larry, is this a legal thing, or is it?
Legally, I think the board does have to hire, so you have to approve anybody's hiring.
Mm-hmm.
If someone is terminated, the board has to take that action. If someone resigns, that's up to the board if they want to approve the resignation or if they just want to let the people resign. That's not a legal requirement. Many people resign, they just, want to go quietly, go to their next job or what have you, and they don't want to write a letter. They don't want to have anything formal and just want to move on. If someone writes a letter and the board chooses to approve their resignation, that's up to the board, but that's not a legal requirement.
So from my point of view, I think the latter part would act really to hold people back in sharing feedback for you as an administrator, because it would be part of the public record. I don't know that it's any to just approve a resignation. I don't know that. What would be the drawbacks to that, I guess?
Well, what happens in practice is we do exit interviews, and Ms. Moore and others have a tendency to do an open records request for those exit interviews. Which is fine, because it's a public record. But as you can imagine, many people don't want their opinions to be spun in a different direction on social media, which happens and has happened. And so it's just a disincentive to be truthful and honest and candid.
When you left Covington, was your job, your employee files pursued by them?
They were, yes.
And so I understand your point of view on that.
Yeah.
And you probably left Covington on good terms.
Very. Yeah.
So is there an advantage to approving a resignation without? I guess I'm just trying to figure out what the.
I think the intent is to be able to then have a tip off to be able to ask for a public record, and then in hopes that somebody's leaving on bad terms, and that generates bad publicity for the township. That's my opinion.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. I wanted to get behind the mechanics of that.
Sure. Okay. Number 3, regarding the money received under the CARES Act, what expenses is the township being reimbursed for specifically? So we talked about that at our special meeting today. We have not been reimbursed for anything. We have received about 75% of the money that is currently allocated through state and county CARES Act funding. And we talked about those priorities being personal protective equipment, PPE, and some capital items. So that is the type of expenses that are being that we'll likely be moving forward with. Okay, regarding the contract with SMBP, I don't see a question in here. There's a number of statements. Let's see. When the township is going to take action on commercial vacant property introduced by Mr. Mills, when is the township going to take action on commercial vacant property introduced by Mr. Mills in 2013 but never enacted? If everyone would look at the Colerain Township Transparency Portal, you'll see that there are vacant building registries. We keep track of the vacant building registries that pop up. And so far this year, we have had 20 vacant foreclosed property registrations and 17 vacant building maintenance license registrations. Last year, we had 53 foreclosures registrations and 30 vacant building maintenance license. So we have enacted that, and we are receiving quite a bit of revenue from that program. And I think that Mr. Iona is going to discuss that more later on in the agenda. Number 6, related to Bruce Pirano's comments about the Rumpke contract. I don't see a question there, so it was a statement. Number 7, related to the support services sergeant approved on August 11th. In the agenda packet, it said what the salary is for the new position. So, so check that out. It's on our website. And then, will it be funded by the school? Yes, it will be funded by the school. Total compensation. Applying for ODOT permits for I-275 improvements. What exact improvements? Mr. Iona gave a presentation to the Board of Trustees in which a set of plans, I believe, were included in the agenda packet, and so those sets of plans are the exact improvements. Those plans were prepared by KZF at the direction of the board. Okay, regarding the TransUnion contract, what is the cost to the township? What is the cost to the township? I think at the last meeting I mentioned that it's not a pecuniary contract, which means there's no money. The agreement doesn't involve the commitment of funds, so it's not a
I think a full copy of it was in the agenda.
Yes,
Because
full
I
copy is in
remember
the
seeing
agenda.
one that had
Yes, sir.
handwriting on it, the signatures and that.
Yep. Okay, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mills.
Mr. Mills did have a
Yes,
unrelated
sure.
question. Sorry, Mr. President. It was brought to my attention that the pictures of the trustees, at one point they used to have the emails and you could just click on it. Now you have to go through the whole thing. And Wallert is one of those names that's kind of difficult to spell.
Sure.
And I'm getting some feedback of people that are like, I emailed you, and it's oftentimes not even close to my name, which I get. I mean, I spell it wrong half the time myself.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
I think you could probably talk to our IT director and have him fix your link. I think it's coming up on the screen right now.
Yep, so if you click on email Matt Wallert, right there,
Okay.
that'll take you to your email.
Okay.
Yep, so it is live and direct.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. Yes. Okay. I will let folks know, and I think that's all I had. Sorry.
Very good, no problem.
All right,
Thanks.
and thank you for your report, Jeff. And does that cover our administrative reports?
Yes, sir.
So the next item would be trustees' report. Does one of you want to go first, or I will? I don't care. Okay, I will go first. 2 weekends ago, there was quite a traffic jam on Saturday afternoon and Sunday, as the state of Ohio has chosen to redo the bridge deck on Colerain Avenue where it goes over I-75. It has needed maintenance. I'm glad that we were able to get that funded and have the very important artery updated and maintained. Just as a note to the public, I believe weather permitting, that 2 weekends ago, 2 of the 5 lanes were done, about 2.5 of the 5 lanes were done. I believe this coming weekend, weather permitting, that the other 2 lanes are going to be done. So if you're heading up Colerain Avenue this coming Saturday, which would be the 12th, I guess, and the 13th, there's a very good chance there's going to be a major maintenance project there. I know Mr. Weckbach had checked into that, and Jeff, I would ask that I think you were going to put together a circle story about it and whatever else we need to do to publicize that, to give people a chance to know that there's, the next 3 bridge decks are Brem Road, Pippin Road, or Hamilton Avenue. If you need to get across I-275 to the north this weekend, you might consider one of those other 3 bridge decks to get across the interstate. The litter business, boy, there's quite a bit of it, and I've noticed that a lot of folks just feel free to dispose of litter right out their car window. To that end, I've been involved with some volunteers in the township, and And recently, we did a cleanup at Colerain and Galbraith. A follow-up to that a week later. Thank you to some of the folks from the Northbrook group. There's a stretch of Galbraith Road from Pippin heading towards the public library and towards St. Anne's, where there was quite a bit of trash. A lot of that got picked up last week. The weeds growing up between, and this is a county road, it's not a township road, but nonetheless, there's trash there. And I did send an email to Eric Beck, and I was responded to by Kirk Music, which is, I believe, the director of maybe the Western Depot down there on Harrison Avenue for the engineers, and he was going to get somebody out there to finish the cleanup. So thanks to the volunteers that are out there picking up litter, and to those of you that are generating it, please consider using a trash can or not just throwing stuff out the window. It's tough to keep up with it, and all these businesses, they need to, they can go out and pick up stuff every day, and there'll be more tomorrow. So we certainly need to go after it from that end, but we also need to have a little public awareness that please, quit littering. And this township is a great, beautiful place, and when litter's thrown, people lose sight of that. And that said, there are a lot of folks out there that very generously give their time to clean things up, and it's much appreciated by myself, and I'm sure by the rest of the Board of Trustees. And so, Jeff, I'll just ask again that you give us some kind of update on what's going to happen this weekend. And it would be great if we had a couple message boards going up Colerain Avenue to advise people to consider an alternative route. It's a great project to get that bridge deck refinished. And with that, I will, who would like to go next?
Raj wanted to go last.
Mr. Wallert, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Unger, for the work that you did and other volunteers and working on trash. And this has kind of become my my goal in life is trash. I tell students when they turn in a paper and it's been folded in their book bag and snarled and stuff, I'm like, look, you don't turn in a copy of War and Peace on, handwritten on the back of a napkin. Presentation means something. And I'm so grateful for all the grants that we're receiving that Mr. Mills and Mr. Weckback are applying for. And I feel just in general as a human being a moral obligation that we, when we get these grants, that we use that money wisely. I mean, that's somebody's dollars that have gone into that, and I want this place to look clean. It's frustrating when I see some of this stuff out there, and I know that it's just carelessness and negligence, and it's just very frustrating, and we'll be talking about that later. But if I'm coming on strong about it, it's because I feel strong about trash, which is something I never would have thought. But it reveals who we are. I don't want people coming down here and seeing trash and thinking, oh, that's a junky place. And I think it's easier for people to litter when they see litter. I don't have any empirical data to prove that, but I think that's probably how the human mind works. I'd like to thank Mike Evangelo, who I guess number 1A, picked up a whole pickup truck full of snipe signs. And again, I think that's sending a couple messages out and he did so in the Northbrook area. That's sending messages out to the community. We'll pay you bottom dollar cash for your property. You know what? I don't want people to sell their homes for bottom dollar. I don't want them to want to. And that's kind of what bothers me with that. So a big thanks to that. Now, I mean, I've been getting texts and stuff. There's one thing, in Colerain you see a lot of people disagree over stuff, but one thing they're agreeing over is let's clean this up. And I tend to agree with that, and we're working very hard to do so, and we're going to get some solutions on it. A couple items I want to bring up too very quickly. On September 18th, beginning at 6 p.m., the Colerain Veterans Group is going to have a flag retirement at McDogg's. That's also POW MIA Recognition Day, September 18th. That begins at 6 p.m. I have been honored to see a number of flag retirements, and it's kind of a moving experience. I wear my patriotism on my sleeve. I love to see it. But that's happening the 18th. On September 11th, and this was organized by a resident here, at 5 p.m. there's a group of folks that are meeting at the Mission Barbecue for the Never Forget Ride. Mission Barbecue's in Mason. At 5 p.m. they're going to meet there. I guess it's motorcycles, is that right? Okay, and then they're going to drive to the 9/11 Memorial here in Colerain, and Springdale. And at 6 p.m., there'll be some remarks by State Senator Bill Blessing, and there'll be barbecue there for $5 a plate. And that goes to fund Dale Woods Foundation. And if you can be there, be there. I didn't necessarily take the big, I think that's become the real thing now, is to have these big jaunts. We saw the Trump jaunt, and but 9/11 Memorial at 6-ish p.m. It's amazing. As a teacher, I talk about 9/11 now, and none of my students were alive, and it makes me feel so old. But it makes me so hardened in my duty to pass that on to the next generation, what it was like to be there that day. And I think this is a great cause to get involved with as well. I think that's it, and I appreciate it, and everybody, keep getting me emails and messages, and I'm happy for the feedback and happy to work on these items. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Raj, you're up next.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Couple of things I want to emphasize that I'll be meeting, Jeff knows, with the ODOT director, and Tommy Arnold is director of planning, and ODOT delegation, sometimes from September 28, 29, and the congressional delegation, Steve Shabbat and his staff, because the Congress is going to pass the huge transportation bill. And our goal is to how we can use the money from ODOT and from the federal government, which is actually the Colerain Avenue is a federal highway, technically, and make this Colerain Avenue corridor plan. And Steve Shabbat, he came on the meeting one time video, he showed the book, I gave him the book, the presentation of the corridor plan. And that, having said that, it's going to be a very remarkable meeting, because this both departments, state and the federal, going to come. We're going to talk about how you're going to make this corridor plan a reality. And that'll be like a September 28th, 29th, like this. So I'm excited about that, meeting those people. Most likely we'll meet at the Lebanon office, so we'll come up with the plans. Second thing, I'm really excited about our new, the president of the Colerain Chamber of Commerce. I went to their meeting a couple of weeks ago. Trustee Hunger was there too. We talked about, not meeting there, no, the township, the business, how Colerain Chamber can collaborate, work together with the township, be a part of the economic development. Because so far, township, the chamber has been, they work in a distance, but this time they work closely with the township, be a part of it, and in the strategic planning. And also I've seen a lot of young professionals were there. They were excited because they want to get involved in the township also. And we need to find a way to organize. We got talented people, young professionals in our township. Get them involved to how to improve our township. And that's very critical. Two things, I'm really excited. I asked the new president, Dave, to come to one of our trustee meetings, make a presentation. Probably the next meeting, if the agenda is okay, we can put him on, make a presentation. He's also excited, and get involved with the township. That's very important. We got a neighbor there, and it's a great thing that's going to happen. I want to give a quote in my final report. This is from our past president, John F. Kennedy. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. I want to repeat this. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. What a remarkable statement. We heard, in the Facebook, all the things, some of the people, they blast our township. They bring it down our township. We live in a beautiful township. And I also proudly say, we have this township a remarkable leadership team. I call them a dream team. These guys, some of them are sitting here, and these people work so hard to make our township the best township. They work hard. I know that. I got an email from this guy about 5:30 in the morning. I don't know if you sleep or not. I got email from some of the people in the nighttime, 6 o'clock. That's what they're thinking about it. And we just heard our two trustees say earlier how, on the report, how these people, citizens, so excited, do the clean, they want to make our township better. They do clean up. They volunteer the township. Here, a certain segment of people sitting there blasting our township. You want to make our township better? Come with us, work with us, help us. You got idea? Tell us. We don't want to make our township, put them on the Facebook, disgrace our township. That is a bad thing to do for our township. I would say that's a bad thing to do for a township. You want to be a part of a township, get involved in the township. We all work together. We listen to you. We got a great board. The people, they all hand on work together. We got some misunderstanding. That's common. But Dan, Matt, he's working so much. We all working together about how you're going to clean up other things. There are a segment of people sitting there just blasting. Come and help. Give a hand. Make our township better. That's what I like to say. I want to invite you, be a part of our leadership and help us. That's my appeal.
Roger, I really appreciate your passion. Thanks. My recommendation was going to be for every 10 hours that somebody spends on Facebook, if they would spend 1 hour, grab 2 trash bags and go find a place and fill them, the place gets cleaned up real quick. So
Dan,
that would be the formula. 10 hours on Facebook, 1 hour cleaning something up.
I won't tell anybody. I live on a dry ridge road, huge way. There's a lady, elderly lady. She walks every morning, and she kind of a little bit crippled with a bag in her hand, a shopping bag, Kroger bag. And as she walks along, she picks up the trash and walks. And this lady walks every day, and she picks up the trash. There are people don't give a regard to our township or regard to the thing. They throw the trash. That's a mean thing you can do for your township, the place you live. Here the person, she crippled, older lady, she walks, pick up your mess. Those are the people make a difference in our country, in our place where you live. That's exactly what President Kennedy said. Do what you can do for your country. Don't ask what you want, but do.
Thank you again, Raj. And that would conclude our trustees report, and that will move us into new business, Mr. Mills.
Thank you. Very good. Okay, gentlemen, our first item of new business comes from the Public Safety Departments and the Police Department specifically. Chief Denny will present the first item.
I have one item tonight, Board. It's a motion to purchase forensic equipment from TriTech Forensics. I recommend adoption of a motion permitting the purchase of forensic evidence processing equipment from TriTech Forensics in the amount of $17,281. The items requested are a blood drying cabinet for clothing from crime scenes and a cyanoacrylate, which is a big word for superglue, fuming chamber with filters. These items allow our detectives to process crime scenes and keep up with the standards of evidence and making sure that we present ourselves in a professional way.
Hold on, I have to ask this. So that really, in Beverly Hills Cop, when Eddie Murphy puts the super glue in the turtle's domain, that really works?
The color, he did it, I think the color turned black on his.
Yeah.
It actually turns white. So it actually does work.
All right.
And it's some of the best evidence they get.
Wow. Okay, that's...
Very toxic, obviously.
All right.
So I would motion that we purchase the forensic equipment from TriTech Forensics.
I'll second that.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you.
Chief. The next items in new business
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
come from the Department of Public Services and Director O'Connell.
Hi, Jackie.
Hello, in person.
Yes. There's less bugs in here, too. I wish I had something as cool to buy as super glue like the chief did, but I have got three pieces of business before you gentlemen this evening. The first one is I recommend the adoption of a motion authorizing the township administrator to sign an agreement with Strausser Construction for cape sealing at Brockton, Cobblestone, Squirrel's Nest, and Niagara. I left Niagara off of the motion. This is part of our road program, and it is a preventative measure to help the road last longer. These streets aren't failing, so they don't fall in our F category. They're more a C type road if you're doing a school rating system, which is easy for people to comprehend. And this pricing, we did not have to go out for competitive bid on this because it's part of the ODOT Cooperative Purchasing Program. So ODOT, it's not state contract, it's another process. So a few months ago, you authorized a motion to participate in this program. So Strausser gives us the price that they gave the state, which serves as their competitive bid.
I would motion that we authorize Township Administrator to sign an agreement with Strausser Construction for cape sealing of township streets.
I'll second that, excuse me.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Those items are pre-bid to the state, so there is competitive bidding,
Yes,
but it's on the ODOT. It's on the ODOT 101G contract, so yes, there was a competitive bid submitted, and by virtue of them submitting their bid, they're compelled to give us the pricing, whether it's near their facility or whether it's in Portsmouth or anywhere else. So that's what I'm aware of with that contract. Was there any other discussion?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions that just kind of have to renew my knowledge, my limited knowledge on this. So do they rank them on a scale of what, 1 to 80 or something?
1 to 100.
1 to 100. So these will be in the 30 to 40-ish range usually, or 50?
Yes, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but yes.
Ish. Okay.
It
So
would probably be a little higher than 40, so it might be more 60-ish.
So I like this preventative kind of thing. How many years approximately do we typically add with the chip sealing? Because if we leave it go, we're going to have to replace it within 6 to 7, 8 years. Is that
Right. And what typically happens, in my understanding, is asphalt has a certain percentage of voids, like the blacktop in a parking lot, and the microsurfacing or the black mat that's being put down has a much smaller percentage of void, so it gets less water penetration. I know there are streets down in Cincinnati that were sealed with these products 25 years ago. They are cracked. They're not. There's little hairline cracks, and it's not the prettiest thing, but it's very effective at preserving the investment that was made in a surface.
okay? So they last even. I was in the belief that they're maybe add 6, 8 years to
Well,
it. but-
it depends on the traffic load, whether there's trucks or whatever, how much turning there is, whether it's a straightaway or a curve. The products, when they're initially put down, there's a little bit of loose kickoff or very small stone with it, and it looks really great about a month after it's put down when it starts to wear in a little bit with numerous wheel passes. So I think it's a great project, and it's a way to stretch our budget, because this is, was it $6.88 a square yard versus $22 a square yard to pave?
Yes, it's much cheaper to do.
Yeah.
So if we do the mill and fill, usually, so the streets we concentrate on in the road program, those are failing streets. They are Fs, and we have a lot of Fs in the township, as you saw with the PCIs, and most of those streets need curb repairs too. None of these streets need curb repair, so capes, and they're not failing, so that makes them an excellent candidate for cape sealing. So the residents will notice a definite improvement on their streets.
So I just want to encourage you to keep on finding those places that we can cape seal, because I think as I've looked at the projection, we're in a little bit of a catch-up phase. Okay, yeah. In this, and I don't want to avoid the area while we're catching up over here on the failing. I don't want to avoid the ones over here and have them failing soon.
Yes, that's why we pulled this out, because people in Squirrel's Nest are passionate about their road, as you would be.
We hear from them quite often.
Yes, we do, which is fine. But if we only address them with the way we currently do roads, our mill and fill, we won't hit them for 30 years.
Yeah.
Because of the dollar amount. So there's a graphic out there, and I showed it at the beginning of the year. Dan, I'm sure you're very familiar with it, about preventative measures, how it extends the life. We have to find ways to do that, and this is one of those ways. And we had plenty of fund balance to do that with this year, so it was an easy call.
Okay, thank you. I
Looks like
appreciate it.
Brockton is at a 63 and Squirrel's Nest is at 68.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Was there any other discussion?
None.
Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you. The second item of business is I would like to recommend the adoption of a motion authorizing the township administrator to sign an addendum with Human Nature, who is planning has planned our Colerain Park playground, a replacement for Megaland. We have asked them to do more work than we had originally intended for them to do, including helping with the bid documents, overseeing the bid process, and helping with construction, helping oversee some construction. So
I would motion that we authorize the township administrator to execute the contract addendum that you have described.
I'll second that motion.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, Dan, so
Mike?
this addendum is, we're going to sign the contract expecting that second money from the state will be granted. We'll get the grant, correct?
Yes, so the scope of services in this addendum are to develop the second phase of construction documents, which is a big task, and then to be the civil engineer on the project for grading and drainage, and to help us prepare the bid documents and review and evaluate those bids, and then to be the construction observation. When these things are built, it's a very technical process of constructing a playground. These guys do playgrounds all day, so they know exactly what to look for. So for $17,300, they're going to do all of those things for us.
So once they do that work, we can also able to produce this, for the second grant, that big grant.
Yes, sir.
So you take your pre-measures.
Yes.
Good.
yes, and some of this was, so the first, when we initiated with them for the first time, it was to design a playground. So then as we got into it, moving into design, evaluating the playgrounds, it's not as simple as this is the bottom dollar of what you're charging. There's a lot more that goes into it, especially playability and things like that. So we engaged them to help us help evaluate the bids too from a professional level. So we expanded the scope of what we had originally asked them to do for us.
Great.
Because we just don't have the capacity on staff. They're landscape architects and engineers. They do this all day, like Jeff said.
And it's nice to have a third-party set of eyes on the bid docs. So if there was any, there's no way for anybody to say that we are biased in our evaluation. We've got a third party evaluating it.
Was there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
And my third piece of business tonight is I recommend the adoption of a motion authorizing Mr. Mills to execute an agreement with municipal and contract sealing products for the final piece of the common circle drainage pipe. So as you recall, earlier this year, we had the head wall repaired, and we went out to bid we sent out 3 or 4 requests for bid. We received 1 back. It came in at a number that we were very pleased with. They have good references, and the type of measure they are recommending is acceptable to staff, and it's approved by engineers. So we're excited about that too, because it saves us some money, and it should still provide what we need it to do.
Are we finished?
Yes, we are finished with it.
Okay. I'll motion to accept, what am I doing? I'm motioning to accept the resolution as provided, or the motion as provided.
Then I'll second it. It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
None.
None.
No, you got my question, that we're finished with comments
We're
now.
finished with it. Yeah, so we had to reinforce the head wall first. We reinforced the head wall. Now we have to seal the pipe. So they are going to seal the pipe and help hopefully eliminate any issues.
And this
we
is
have.
what, a 30-year kind of boom guarantee is forever?
I'm pretty sure it's not forever,
Yep.
Mr. Waller, but.
A 1,000-year guarantee.
But if it starts to fail, they'll come back and they'll work on it for us.
Gotcha. All right.
And if there's something else that happens that we're not anticipating, they will come back and help us.
Okay.
out. So.
All right, thank you.
Was there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
All right.
Before I leave the podium, I just want to say one more thing. I was remiss and I did not during my administrative reports. I'm very excited. We are finally having our first concert of the season this Friday. The Vernon McIntyre Appalachian Grass Band is performing down at Colerain Park. So the governor finally, a week ago, gave guidelines for festivals and events, which concerts fall into. So we are now legally allowed to have concerts at Colerain Park. So we're very excited about that.
That is, I saw it up on the marquee, and that is this
Friday.
It's Friday, great, and the weather's going to be there, and it'll be fabulous.
Yes, so
Love the
hopefully
music.
good weather, good company, good music. So
Is item D yours also, or is it?
So item D, we met with our
Stay up there for a minute.
our contractor last week and determined that because this round of ODOT funding does not include a match, and because we want to make sure that Metro is 100% on board and the owners of all of the property adjacent to the proposed access road between Redskin and Springdale are 100% involved, we felt that it was best to pull this item at
So
the last
we'll
minute.
have to table that, or we'll,
I would recommend, what is the,
You don't need to table it, just pull it from the agenda.
we'll just withdraw it from the agenda.
great. Well, Jackie, I wanted to take a moment and thank you for your professionalism over the last couple of weeks and operating admirably under very difficult circumstances. And the event that you and your staff and the rest of the administration put together, I can't imagine how, considering what was going on, I don't think it could have went better. And on a personal note, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sure you've gotten to know Jason and the other guys up there, and I'm sure it's heartbreaking. And we're counting on you to lead the department through this and forward, and continue to do great work. So,
thank you. Yes, it was definitely a team effort, and it was tough. It was good to get our mind off the day-to-day routine and have something different to do, though. So
sure,
it was
and for those that
definitely a
didn't know,
first.
we hosted a large socially distant funeral in our Public Works building. And Jackie and the rest of the group was able to put that together, and I was able to attend along. I saw Matt and Raj there, and we were all socially distant, and you just did a really good job in very difficult circumstance. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I'll just echo that and thank you for your leadership. And I'll just share, not to make light of the situation, but I'm leaving and it's 300 degrees in that building. And if you guys ever wanted an air conditioner in a public works building, it would have been the time to pull for that. And I'm leaving and I'm just sweat. And I look at a citizen, I'm like, I lost 10 pounds in there. Citizen looks at me and says, why don't you go back in for another hour?
Yes, his family, we were honoring their wishes and how he would want to do it. So you probably noticed the 80s playlist, and
And we got to meet them, and they're very nice people, and I hope they're able to find some peace in the days ahead. So
That's a great place to say farewell to Jason. That's amazing. That's good. Thanks.
thank you very much, Jackie. And the next item, Mr. Mills.
Very good. The next item comes to us from the Department of Planning and Zoning and Director Mike Iona. Mike?
Thank you, Jeff. Good evening, trustees. I have one item this evening, and that is a resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement on the following properties. We have 2966 Cranbrook, 2575 Crest, 2920 Crest, 10320 Fay, 11431 Cravenhurst, 9710 Laura Linda, 3108 Niagara, 3159 Niagara, 3484 Niagara, 9753 Stadia, 2562 Springdale, and finally 9841 Crusader. And staff is recommending approval of a resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement on the aforementioned property.
I would motion that we approve such a thing.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
None.
Hearing none, Mr. Baker, would you please call for a vote?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
All right.
Thank you, board. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Iona. Okay, moving into administrative items. The first one derives directly from our special meeting earlier tonight at 6 p.m. where we discussed the CARES Act. This is a resolution that authorizes the adoption of appropriations for the CARES Act. As Mr. McElravy mentioned in his presentation, to date we have received approximately $900,000 into the 2 CARES Act funds that the board established. And the first step in this process is to appropriate the funds, and that's what we're asking you to do tonight by resolution. And we're asking specifically for an appropriation of $301,656.45 from Fund 2272, which is the Coronavirus Relief Fund State, and then $603,312.91 from Fund 2273, the Coronavirus Relief Fund, Hamilton County. We do anticipate, as I mentioned, another approximately $300,000 from that will be received into Fund 2272. Once you consider this resolution, I'd like to talk to you briefly just to make sure that I understand, and my understanding is the same as yours for how you would like us to proceed with that. But let's start with the consideration of the resolution.
So I'll motion to authorize the adoption of the Appropriations Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security CARES Act.
And I will second it. It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I think we did discussed in the special meeting. We have a right goal set up. The money will be spent wisely, appropriately to help the township.
Very good.
And these are incurred expenses, and as you mentioned, there will be an audit of them next year, and I'm sure you and your team are certainly making sure it's all allocated and spent properly by the rules and laws that have been set up describing how it can be spent.
Yes, sir.
Was there any other discussion?
Did you want to make a point?
No, well, once we do the appropriations, then I'd like to talk to you
Okay.
about the next level
Okay,
of detail.
I got you.
Yep.
So was there any other discussion on this? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, would you please call for a vote?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Okay, very good. So we've appropriated approximately $900,000. We will come back to you for the $300,000, and we'll have to appropriate that. If Senate Bill 357 becomes law, is enacted, then we will come to you either to receipt that into another one of these established funds, or if there's another fund that is required to be created, we'll do that. What we talked about at the special meeting, and I just want to make sure that we're all clear here, is we're prioritizing, number one, personnel in our levy-funded funds, police and fire, in an attempt to push the levies out as far as we can, so we do not have to raise taxes on residents in order to fund our operations. So to that end, we are the way that this breaks out according to our analysis is we can get approximately $492,000 into our police or our fire and EMS funds. We can allocate approximately $700,000 into our police fund, $25,000 into planning, and $25,000 into admin and finance. That's sort of a breakdown by department. By cost type, that's about $1 million into personnel, about $70,000 into PPE, or personal protective equipment, and about $171,000 into capital items, all directly related to our battle with COVID this year. Does that adequately summarize?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Yes. Great. Okay. Then that's the direction we will move in. It's going to be, as I mentioned at the special meeting, it is going to be an all-out sprint to get these funds encumbered between now that it's appropriated and October 15th, and then we'll get them out the door by December. Thank you. The next item that we have in administration is a motion to send a letter to the state delegation, our state delegation, requesting the adoption of the state capital budget. We discussed this matter earlier. Staff recommends adoption of this motion. We were informed that that the state delegation would be recommending our project, the Colerain Playground Replacement Project, for an award of funding with the 2020 state capital budget. But due to COVID-19, the state of Ohio has delayed the adoption of this appropriations bill. This letter is intended to show the support of our local Board of Trustees for capital appropriations bill and to request that the state move forward with their process. It is my understanding that other townships are also sending a very similar letter. And this will be received, I think, favorably by our delegation because they are supportive of the capital bill.
I'll motion to authorize Township Administrator to execute, I'm ahead. A motion to send letter to state delegation requesting adoption of state capital budget.
I'll second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
So who's this going to send their blessing? Representative Abrams?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion?
None.
None.
And that letter is contained in our agenda, which is available online, and I'm looking at a copy of it right here, and there it is, and it's got a spot for the three of us to sign, so upon approval, we could print it off and sign it. Was there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to authorize the Township Administrator to execute a memorandum of understanding with Hamilton County for the establishment of a temporary backup 911 facility in Colerain Township. The background here is the Hamilton County 911 Center is currently located in Colerain Township on Civic Center Drive and Hamilton. They are going to be moving their backup facility to a location in Blue Ash. That build out on the Blue Ash backup facility is not going to be completed until October or November. They need a temporary backup center for the emergency 911, and we walked the facility here, 4200 and 4300 Springdale, and identified a number of locations that would be suitable for the backup center. This agreement just memorializes our agreement to allow them to come and operate here. And they will actually, they are going to exercise this temporary facility, so there will be times when all of the Hamilton County 911 traffic will be going through this building.
What do they,
I'll motion to authorize the Township Administrator to execute a memorandum of understanding with Hamilton County for the establishment of a temporary backup 911 facility in Colerain Township.
I will second that. It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
why do they want to move to Blue Ash?
They have I think that they're going to be co-locating their backup facility with the emergency management agency's either backup facility or frontline facility. Backup facility. So they're going to be co-locating. They found a facility that works very well for them in Blue Ash. So.
They're moving the
Backup.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because here, of course, in Blue Ash, you have very high city taxes.
Very.
Where here in Colerain Township, you don't have that same burden for your employees.
That's exactly right.
Was there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item is consideration of a motion to renew and extend the law director. We recommend consideration of a motion to renew and extend the law director's contract, Mr. Larry Barbier. The Township's existing agreement with Mr. Barbier to serve as the Township's law director is set to expire on December 31st, 2020. I can tell you that my experience has been absolutely fantastic. We have won everything. We've won everything, and we will continue to win all of our legal travails. And they've done an excellent job. I will also mention that Mr. Barbier was recently named the best First Amendment lawyer in Southwest Ohio. He adds that to just sort of a collection of accolades that he's earned over the course of his career. So I'll end it there.
So do we need a motion to discuss if we should extend him, or what do we
I
need?
would say let's discuss, and then if you could tell me if you at the end of this discussion, if you want to move in this direction, we will prepare a contract and bring it back to you. The alternative is that we need to go out to do an RFP like we did 2 years ago, and we saw what that brought. So
Sure. I think Larry's done an excellent job, along with Scott, and like I said, we have won everything. You recently got the most current of lawsuits filed, voided out, and I know we're at a point in that process.
Discussion time?
I don't think, should we discuss first or motion first?
We can.
Second the motion.
the motion I'm looking for is a motion to bring the contract.
Yeah, my sense was that Jeff was just asking for a discussion And then if you seemed like you were in favor of this, he was going to bring a contract and a resolution to you at the next meeting.
Yes.
So you're asking for discussion?
Yeah, discussion, and if you wanted to take action, the motion would be, I move to direct the township administrator to prepare a contract with Mr. Barbier.
And then that resolution will then have to be, in contract, will have to be voted on,
Yes.
just like your and Mr. Weckbach's contract were.
At a future meeting?
Yeah. And it's been, I mean, from my point of view, I think Mr. Barbieri's done a great job, Mr. Solomon. My point of view, I do support that. But just out of practice, I always would, I did that for you and Mr. Weckbach too. I would want to have it read twice to get as much input as possible. But this doesn't really count as a reading because we don't have a resolution.
Sure.
So I will motion to that you prepare a resolution and contract to renew and extend our law director.
Very good.
And I will second that. It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I think this is a consideration motion, we still have discussion. I'd like to talk with Larry and, what's the future plan with the township, his goals, so I will like have a second reading on this that we finalize. But I won't say go ahead and write a contract now, but we will, will the second meeting, we still have time, second meeting we finalize, okay? And I really like to discuss, and like Dane and Matt said, Larry's doing a great job. All the suits, he won all the lawsuits. This is things I'd like to talk to you, certain things, okay?
Do I understand correctly what Mr. Waller, what you were saying? You would like, your motion was to prepare a contract, we'll bring it back for one reading and then take action at the second reading?
Yes.
Okay, so it sounds like on the 22nd, we would have first consideration is what the motion was, and then on the October 8th or 8th, whatever the second Tuesday.
The first October meeting.
First
we would-
October meeting, that's when we would take action. Is that was your motion, right?
And that's just, that's out of point of practice. I did it with you and Mr. Weckbach too, is that, I think that needs two readings to get all the citizen input.
So it sounds like there'd be two readings.
So that to answer Mr. Rajagopal's questions he has about long-term planning and stuff, there's going to be plenty of time.
Got it. Okay.
Right, and my other comment would be, we employ you to handle the affairs of the township on a day-to-day basis. My charge to you would be go out and negotiate with Larry and his firm for an extension. And I think you've done a great job, Larry. Thank you for being there and handling the wide variety of things you get from the small to the large, and you certainly bring quite a bit of experience to the position. You're not somebody that just started, and I know you work with a few other government entities, and as I said 2 years ago during the time we debated last time during the meeting, I think you've done a great job. So I would ask Jeff to get back with us at our next meeting with a contract for a first reading, and then we could vote on it at the meeting after that.
Yes, sir.
So was there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to authorize the Township Administrator to release a request for qualifications for engineering services. As you all are aware, we have had an increasing need for engineering services, whether it's for our sidewalk projects or for the head wall replacement, or the even the playground project requires an engineer.
Colerain corridor.
Yeah, the Colerain corridor, all these things, in an effort to improve the procurement process. What we're suggesting is releasing an RFQ for engineering services, soliciting qualifications from any engineering company that wants to do business with us, and then entering into a master services agreement with qualified engineering firms. And I say firms with an S at the end, plural, so that because each firm has a specialty and a thing that they might be good at. That way, we have a master services agreement which identifies the price for different tasks, and then if we needed engineering services, we would then negotiate a scope of work with one of those qualified firms, I would bring that scope of work to the Board of Trustees, and then you all would approve or deny the project and the use of the firm. So the goal here is to make our procurement process more efficient. Get
So
projects.
in other words, you kind of pre-select them based on the qualifications and the performance.
Yes, sir. It doesn't.
I'll go ahead and motion to get it to the floor so we can discuss it. I motion to authorize the township administrator to release a request for qualifications for engineering services. And is there a second?
I second.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Like Jeff mentioned about, and this gives you your capabilities of pre-selecting the people.
Yes, sir.
But you still not pointing that person could be a right person, but you still got the option to, if you're not satisfied, to go to search for other person.
Yes.
But it's not ultimate person, we already pre-select, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And some engineering firms may do better at civil or site engineering. Some engineering firms might be more suited to transportation or more suited to whatever the different needs are that we have. But in this way, we'll be able to execute projects more quickly. Now, to be, and the first project that we'll probably use this process on is the Colerain Avenue streetscape project, where between Shady Crest and John Rose, we need to identify an engineer quickly. So this is a process that we can use for that.
So let me make sure I understand this, because I thought I did, and now I wonder if I do. So the three firms for master services agreement would all be a 2-year contract for each of the three, is that, or per project?
No, it would be it would be project based.
Okay.
Yeah. So and we wouldn't have any obligation to any of the firms ever, and it would as we received a project in, we could look at our sort of stable of engineers that are qualified and identify which engineering firm is most qualified for that particular project, identify a scope of work for the project, bring it to the board for approval, and then execute the project immediately.
Okay, so would there still be, on a project, would there still be a request? There wouldn't be a request for bids? Okay.
That's right.
Wait a minute, so for the pre-selection, you still having RSP, or, request for proposal, right?
Yes.
Or
Yes. So this for the pre-selection, it's called a request for qualifications.
Qualifications.
So any engineering firm tomorrow will have it up on our website, and we'll say anybody that wants to do business engineering wise with Colerain Township, please submit your qualifications.
Okay, gotcha.
And then we'll be able to identify multiple qualified engineers.
And one of the benefits of that, Jeff, is these engineering firms, they have municipal and government experience, and we might have a project coming up like you describe, and they might say, yeah, we did this with Reading, and when we did it with Reading, we were able to get this grant from this fund for the city of Reading, and so you're not just bringing in somebody with an engineer stamp, which is critical on these projects, but you're bringing in somebody who knows where grant money is, which saves us from going to our taxpayers for increases, and if we can find out how some other municipality did it and how they were able to get some other funding, one of these engineering firms might know that, and when you bring in more than one, they start competing with each other, and when one might say, I know where they got this grant, the other one might say, yeah, when we did it, we got twice that much, and so once you get these guys in and get them competing, it works out, because they tend to know where the grant money is.
Yes, sir.
So
let me, I'm still, not maybe, my mind isn't, my synopsis aren't going here. So there would be, anything engineering would be limited to those three firms?
And it wouldn't necessarily have to be 3. It could be 5 or 8 or...
Okay.
it could be whoever applies.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you, because I still want to maintain the idea that firms are competing against each other.
Yes.
Okay. I was just not getting that. Okay, I got you.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
All right.
Thank you, Board. The next item in administration is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to apply for ODOT permit for the I-275 improvements. We talked about this a little bit earlier in administrative reports. Mr. Iona, well, actually, this goes back to the previous Board of Trustees. Mr. Insco championed at the time, and Mr. Rajagopal and Mr. Unger concurred, the beautification of our interchanges with Colerain Avenue and interstates. I remember Mr. Insko saying, lights and trees, lights and trees, lights and trees. Well, you guys authorized KZF to do a set of drawings and a plan, a landscape plan for the I-275 interchange. They produced that project, Mr. Iona delivered it, and when we made that presentation, you all issued the challenge to us. Could we, okay, so the engineer's estimate is $300,000. Can we do it with volunteer labor? And I, frankly, I was dubious. I did not think that could be done. But we contacted ODOT, and they confirmed that in fact it can be done with volunteer labor. So in order to beautify I-275 and Colerain Avenue, it appears that the path forward here is to first apply for and receive a permit from ODOT. We have the plans in hand. We submit those plans to ODOT. They issue us a permit to do the work. We would then be able to purchase the materials, so the plants, and it would be incumbent upon probably a lot of work from you guys to generate the volunteers needed to trim back the vegetation at 275 and then to plant according to this approved permit and plan.
Sounds like the least expensive way to go.
It is, yes, sir.
So I will motion to authorize Township Administrator to apply for ODOT permit for I-275 improvements.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
How long is this permit time-wise for?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer.
Okay, because I was worried about that when we first talked about is if it 1 weekend or 2 weekends. There's a lot of people that want to put sweat equity into this, and I love the forward momentum to it. And a number of people said, yeah, that's up to the state to do. Yeah, it is, but if you want it to look good, the state's going to do the basic.
Yep.
I'm thankful that they're allowing us to kind of take that over and try to get it to look nice, and at least, I think at the very minimum, clearing the vegetation out makes it look better. Yeah.
Go ahead,
Raj.
Dan. I was going to say at the on 275 eastbound, when you get off at the eastbound ramp that takes you up to Colerain Avenue, I guess one of our local groups keeps that cut. Who's cutting that? It looks great.
I believe that Rumpke cuts the flagpole area, I believe, and the CCA does a huge amount of work picking up litter. And
Yeah, it already looks great from there, but the approach to it, getting off of the low-speed lane and going onto the exit ramp is where there's a lot of vegetation, which is the state's vegetation. It'd be great if they'd allow us to come and address it. So,
Yeah.
was there other discussion, Raj?
Yes. We talked about Jeff last week and get CAC get involved because they're doing other part of these things and they're allowed to do this other side too. I also mentioned about some of the probationers. I helped Green Township also. The probationers come and the tall weeds and stuff like that, and they're cleaned up. We can do that. I already talked to people there. They're looking for a good project, something like that. We send about 7 people a day, probationers. They'll clean up all this stuff.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Was there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you, Board. The next item is, this is an issue that has been championed by Trustee Wallert. Trustee Wallert has tasked staff with getting funds for an electric charging station here in Colerain. And so we've looked, and Mr. Weckbach has put a great deal of time and effort into this. This next item is the first of 2 opportunities that we're pursuing to add an electronic charging station, electric vehicle charging station to the township. This is a recommendation to adopt a motion authorizing township administrator to sign a letter of intent for electronic charging stations grant application at 4200 Springdale with a company called Electrata. The existing grant is funded through the state of Ohio, and local communities are eligible for a 100% match. So that means 0 out of pocket for us on stations that are installed on government-owned properties. As part of this grant process, the township is required to identify and work with a vendor prior to submission of the grant. After reviewing the state contract pricing models and capacity to perform work, township felt that Electrata would be the best fit. for electric vehicles charging station installations. Electrata evaluated several sites, and I determined that 4200 Springdale, right outside here, would be best suited for a 2-4 level 2 to 4 level 2 electric charging stations. No other township sites were identified that could be suitable for this grant cycle. This grant will all be at no cost to the township. This is the first step in the process. If awarded, the township would then have a separate agreement that would need to be entered into with Electrata at a future date prior to year end. Recommendation is to approve.
I'll motion to authorize the township administrator to sign a letter of intent for electric charging stations.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
So these are the vehicles, station charge, is it township or any public?
Anybody. So I think that the idea would be one of our parking spaces out here would turn into an electric vehicle charging station, so anybody could come and charge up. We would not be responsible for the cost of the electric either, so that's good.
Okay, it's a fee for the, anyone,
Yes,
not residents or anything like that,
anybody.
anyone. But it's still that electric will occur for the township, right?
Yeah,
Operations.
if we got
That's
an
for the
electric
match? For the money used for the match, the funding?
Yes, there'd be no match, so no funding from,
Right,
actually,
right,
Mr.
right.
Weckbach is the resident expert here, I'll let.
So my thing is still, the township will incur the electrical, to run that operations, just under the stations.
So Electrata, it's not a free service. The access is free, but the individual would have to pay for the time that they are charging at the station.
Oh, I see.
Oh, to the company.
Like an air pump when you put up your tire for $1 or whatever, yeah.
Yes.
I apologize for misstating that.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
But when we discussed this a while back, you had mentioned that. So I have a question. Does this building, which was built in the 90s, have the service? I imagine with our chiller and all the computers that have come in this building in the last 20 years, do we have the voltage coming into this building to support such a thing? And I know you don't know that answer, but if we didn't and had to have Duke come out and run new service to the building, there would be probably a significant cost for that. So as you move forward with this, there'll be another chance for us to vote on it. Is that how this is set up?
Yeah, so this initial is the letter of intent to allow Electrata to apply for the grant on
Right.
their behalf. They are compiling a number of sites across Hamilton County in order to have a more competitive grant. Outside of that, the way that their funding pricing model is structured actually is kind of a unique niche in the marketplace right now. They charge nothing up front for capital, so if for some reason they found out as they were starting to install these that we did not have everything in place the way that we needed it to and the capital costs were going to be a little higher, they cover those costs because they see the opportunity to make dollars on the back end through the
Okay.
actual charging itself. And if the stations are used for a certain percentage of time, then there are dollars that come back to Colerain Township in addition to the dollars that cover the electric. So, there's sort of depending on how frequently they're used, there's an opportunity for us to gain some revenue in the long term.
Right. So my ask to you would be, as you move forward with this, is find out if this building, if we have the infrastructure here to support a charging station, because it would be something if we had to pay to have another transformer hung out on Springdale Road to
Right.
provide the extra service. Because I don't know what the requirements are, but it sounds like we'll have a couple weeks to learn what that is.
Yeah, and they had their professional electrician and engineering
An
individuals. come
electrical
out on
engineer,
site.
an electrical engineer that could certify that?
Yeah, so they came out on site. They met with myself and Bob De La Pasta, our facilities manager, and we got into the nuts of the building and we got into the nuts of the parking lot, and we were really just sort of going deep, trying to figure out exactly where things were to make sure this was
All right.
viable. And they also met at a couple other sites in the township and found that those sites just weren't going to work at all.
Sure,
So-
and then obviously Chief Walls would look at it and say, hey, this is a good place for a station, or should it be away from the building, or whatever. So, great. Well, I would tend to favor that then. Was there any other discussion?
Yeah, I just want to kind of add, and the reason I've been kind of so focused on this is that our economy is in the middle of a transformation to a new economy. I think this makes us marketable on different levels. I mean, we've obviously heavy in retail right now, but this makes us marketable for other forms of the new technology. I mean, if you look at what's happening right now with business, like Amazon is going to be completely carbon-free by 2040. It sure would be nice to kind of try to draw somebody like them into the township. I think this is more to me than a charging station. This is a message to people that we're going to be part of this new economy that's developing, and we're not going to sit back and wait for something to fall into our laps to replace retail. I think it's important that we be aggressive about that to get those new type of businesses in the township. And I thank you for pursuing this.
And Matt, on that note, something else to consider, there are two types of charging stations. 6 months ago, I didn't realize that there were. There's the level 2 stations, which is what's contemplated today, and then there are the DC fast charging. So those operate at a much, much higher rate. And Electrata actually evaluated a few of our other sites, and they felt that we have a site that would be perfectly suited for DC fast charging, which would be at the corner of Springdale and Colerain. So if those grants become available in January, we may be looking to partner there as well.
And that's something I think that we sell and sell and sell. And, I know that we're in competition with a number of other communities, and I plan on taking their application and putting it away so that we win. Not really.
That's fine, and Matt's got me thinking, I don't know what else our other future electrical demands are here, and that's why I'd go back to, just as long as we have an engineer's statement that we have the capacity not only to handle this, but what if it took off and we decided to add to it? Do we have capacity for that, and so on and so forth? So I think there needs to be an electrical analysis of the demands of this building. But other than that, I support moving forward to the next step, so.
Hey, Jeff, how much impact it'll create traffic around here?
So it's funny, in order to be able to qualify for the grant, they actually want high traffic counts to begin with, and that was.
I'm talking about these locations, yeah.
Right, and so, what they're suggesting is that we're going to be pulling in traffic that's already in the area. This isn't intended to be a draw from, say, 100 miles away. This is intended to be a stop that people can go to that live within our community already. So I don't know that it's going to, be a gangbusters, but the hope is that you've got a car parked out there that would be charging at least for, 8 to 10 hours a day.
Okay, thank you.
And you would coordinate with I don't know if you have a spot picked out, and that's not important right now, but you'd coordinate so it wasn't in the way of our police department, and if that part of the building or any other part of the building ever gets expanded, it wouldn't be something where 5 years from now we'd have to say, wow, I wish we'd have put this over there. So that's all things to think about, but otherwise, was there any other discussion?
No.
Mr. Baker, would you please call for a vote?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Mr. Weckbach.
Mr. Weckbach.
Your expertise is valued. Okay, next item is a motion to waive the rental fee for the rental of Colerain Park Amphitheater for Cub Scout Pack 710 to use for their Pinewood Derby. Cub Scout Pack 710 is chartered to the Northwest Community Church in Colerain Township. Most of the scouts in the pack are students at Colerain Elementary, I'm told. Originally, the Pinewood Derby was set to be held in March at White Oak Christian Church. But after purchasing all the supplies, they had to cancel their race due to COVID. They're looking for a venue where they can give the boys a chance to race this year. The amphitheater at Colerain Park seems ideal to them. If the fee waiver is approved, they would like to rent the facility on September 22nd. And according to policy 5.2 of our policy book related to Colerain Township Park rentals, quote, the Board of Trustees shall have the authority to waive or modify any fees associated with use of the park facilities. And this was requested to be placed on the agenda by Trustee Dan Unger.
I'll motion to waive the rental fee for the rental of the Colerain Park Amphitheater for Cub Scout Pack 710 for use of their Pinewood Derby.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
It's a fun thing. My son used to do that.
Did you build it, or did you let your son build it, Raj? Did you let your son even touch the project, or were you like, here, you go stand over there, I'll build it? Because I'm reading it pretty good, Raj.
Man, these parents go crazy. But it's a very fun project, good for the kids. But something scout thing. I admire you, Dan.
And there's a lot of organizations that are struggling, and I hope they survive all the different shutdowns and lack of ability to fundraise, and I'm certainly glad to help them out. And if we have any interstate viewers that are watching this, Thomas, your car is still sitting on the shelf downstairs, and I apologize once again for the engineering failures that were a result of my input on your Pinewood Derby car, but you've been successful in other areas in life, and hopefully those have overshadowed the disaster that was your Pinewood Derby. So was there any other discussion?
I don't really even know what to say after that. So.
Mr. Baker, would you please call for a vote?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
And Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, my fellow trustees.
Very good. Okay, that concludes new business. The next items are in old business, things that we have discussed in the past. The first item is a discussion of the solid waste and recycling contract. This has been on several agendas in the past. The direction that we're looking for right now is our contract is currently composed, the district that the contract created is currently composed of Ross Township, Springfield Township, and Colerain Township. That contract expires early next year, and so we need direction from the board as to how you would like us to proceed on the RFP. There are several decisions that sort of we need you all to make and provide direction for us. The first one is, do you want to stay in the district with Ross and Springfield Township? That's the first question. And then the second question is, are there any additional services that you would like for us to add to the contract? For example, if the board wishes, as I sense you do, to really address litter, one strategy might be to put municipal garbage cans in certain areas. And so, would you like us to get a price in the next contract for Rumpke picking up those municipal garbage cans? That's just a for example. So we're sort of seeking your guidance on how to proceed on this solid waste district.
So I have two thoughts, the disparate thoughts on this. We can put out two requests for proposals, right? One, just Colerain, and another Colerain as a part of the multi-government jurisdictional.
Jeff is running point on this. Jeff, do you want to come up?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly do that. Whether or not you get different results back will be at the discretion of the vendor. Some may look at our geographies of the district and Colerain specifically and have their actuaries run different numbers. Some respondents may just give you the same responses for both. Personally, I would prefer to have some clarity so that we don't potentially leave one of our neighboring communities holding the bag if at the end of an RFP process we decide to go a different direction. And if that means that we do an RFP much earlier than we need to, that's something we could consider.
Do we anticipate it being cheaper to go alone or to go in combination with you?
I think it would be cheaper to go in combination. I went through the process the last time with the RFP, and the sense I got was, especially with Springfield Township and Colerain Township together, we got a cheaper rate. We got I don't remember the exact numbers, but the rate for Colerain dropped dramatically from something like $20 to $12. So, I mean, it was a real large drop, and
Okay.
I think having the three together was a good thing for Colerain Township.
And I've actually heard the opposite side of the story. So it's a question mark, right? The story that I heard was that potentially because of our proximity to the landfill, the transportation.
Mike? Because of our proximity to the landfill, the transportation costs would be less, and because of our density compared to Ross's density, it's more efficient to set up routes in just Colerain Township rather than Ross. So it could go both ways. Then that's sort of the direction that we're looking for here.
I want the cheapest.
You want the cheapest, yes. And so then we need to figure out how to determine that, right?
Whatever's best for Colerain Township.
Colerain, yeah.
I love our neighbors, but we are the ones that host the landfill, and
Sure.
and whatever would be best for our township.
And the second thought I had is, I do think that's a good idea about the trash cans. And we set a number and find out how much, obviously we can't have Rumpke stop in the middle of Colerain Avenue. That would create some issues. But I think that's worth examining. I don't know if we say, hey, if we get 15 of them, or if we get, I don't know how that even works, or what it looks like.
Yeah, and Larry, I would assume we could probably do like a bid alternate or something like that to see what that cost would be if we wanted to choose it.
And in my research, most recently over the last 3 weeks, there is a tremendous amount of trash at the bus stops. I don't think Metro lets you get on a bus holding a drink or a food wrapper anymore, and a lot of folks just leave their stuff sit there. I would on a sort of unrelated topic to this, I would challenge our administration to contact Queen City Metro, and with their new source of funding, with the passage of Issue 7 back in April, maybe they'd be interested in funding some trash cans at their bus stops. It never hurts to ask, because we won't know unless we ask. And
Who's going to pick up the trash cans?
well, I mean, they can. Well, Rumpke still could, or whoever the vendor is,
Yeah,
but,
Queen
but
City,
maybe,
I mean,
maybe Queen City Metro
has-
could pay to
has to
police
pay
their own.
Rumpke, yeah.
Maybe Queen City Metro could pay to police their own bus stops.
Yeah, I like the idea of Queen City be responsible for that. I would shut it down.
That's where most of it is around the bus stops. And when you're standing there waiting on the bus, and the bus comes, and you're not allowed to get on there with a drink or the coffee that you're drinking or whatever, the cup tends to end up sitting on the illegal bench or
Throw it. They're throwing
sitting
it.
somewhere. So I would ask, Jeff, that you would consider contacting Metro and just saying, hey, what's your idea on how we get your bus stops cleaned up? Can you guys put cans back on your buses? Can you do whatever?
Jeff, I'm asking both Jeffs. Are the people, the residents of Colerain, happy with the present contract? Any complaints do you guys get?
There are complaints from time to time. The
Like
complaint,
a ratio, like
oh,
majority?
minimum.
Is a minimum ratio?
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty is the people who are happy with the service don't necessarily call us to tell us they're happy with it. Oftentimes, the complaint that I get the most frequently is from an individual who just doesn't want to have the trash service at all. And maybe they either own property or have lived previously in another township that doesn't have a solid waste district like we do, or a trash and recycling contract like we do. And so they'll cite that quite frequently and be upset. And
I think there's a regulation somewhere where a residential structure needs to have, or is that in our contract? Is that where I read it? Where residential structure is required to have some method of disposing of trash and refuse. I don't know if I've seen that somewhere, or
right now you're required to be a part of our.
if you live in Colerain, but if I lived somewhere else, I know I'm not allowed to throw trash out in the storm culvert. So that I must have read that in our contract then.
Yeah, it's I think
that is where I saw it, because there was an opt-out provision in there also.
Yes.
And oftentimes, the people who are most upset are people who own property in our township, and maybe their tenant decides to not pay their bill. And so after some time, the current arrangement allows for our current vendor, which is Rumpke, to assess the property owner or send the bill to collections for the property owner. And then that's where they get mad because their renter wasn't doing what they were supposed to be doing, and now they've got this big bill, and they don't understand why trash was required for Colerain. And I think, Jeff, you maybe can speak to this better from when you were the planning and zoning administrator, but there were lots of trash issues where people were just using their backyard for trash rather than having service.
Absolutely. We've seen, there's been a
Casper, what is Casper?
Yeah.
People dumping,
Yes.
in the backyard.
market
Unbelievable.
decrease in
Northbrook.
in dumping in their yards, and also remember the story that Bruce Perano shared, which was, people used to do a lot more dumping in his neck of the woods before the contract than after. I think that's reality. The biggest complaint that I receive is early morning pickups, and sometimes a route.
Right.
Will,
I was going to ask you that.
But it's easy. That is easily resolved with a call to our representative. It's usually a route manager that gets a little ambitious, and so they needs to be reined in a little bit. So we've had good success with that.
Yeah, that's true. Like I got tons of complaints, emails, because they come in at 4 in.the morning, and all the noises. The people get up, want to get some more sleep, go to work, and that was the biggest complaint when I started here.
Well, and part of the reason they're out early is for the safety of their employees. There's a lot less traffic early in the morning than being out during, the last thing I'd want is to have them out at 7:30 in the morning when people are, at least on the main thoroughfares. I think my guy comes around 5 or so, or a little after 5, which is probably earlier, but that's when he's there. And then the recycling guy tends to show up later in the morning. So there's 2 different trucks that come to my house.
It's too dangerous, Dan. These guys, if you see that some of the accidents have people get killed, kind of real dark time. People that Rumpke guys got killed. Accident.
Yes.
Real dark.
Well, they do a great job of lighting up their trucks, though, for sure.
Yeah, especially in the rainy time or when, real dark. For safety, I think they're better off coming during the light time, But anyway, that was a big, when you write the contract, make sure they're strictly followed. People really get mad.
So I would say figure out one that's, I'm one of the 3, figure out one that's unique to Colerain and one with whatever combination of adjacent municipalities would, I think it's currently Springfield Township and Ross and Colerain. And whatever gets the best price and service for the residents of Colerain Township. I love our friends in Ross and Springfield, but I am not their trustee, so.
Yes. Okay.
So maybe as a next step, I'll reach out to the solid waste district, get some perspective from them on what they think would probably get our residents the best rate, and then move forward with the process from there.
Can we pull the offers from the last time it was negotiated and see that the differences that Larry's talking about? Or do we have that?
No, because before we were on a subscription model rather
Okay.
than a contract model.
That's right.
So there isn't that benchmark, unfortunately. But
All right.
but there is a market difference between, and it's up on our website. Those communities that have subscription,
Oh, yeah.
and those communities that have contract, it is a huge difference, and we definitely saw a reduction in cost. Okay, very good.
And on that note too, if the board thinks of other things that they would maybe want to consider as a bid alternate or something like that, feel free to send those either my way or through Administrator Mills.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Very good. The next item is an item for discussion on the 2021 strategic plan and legislative priorities. We are not approaching anymore. We are in the middle of budget and strategic planning season. So to date, the township department directors have gotten together and identified operational goals for and projects that we think each department should pursue at our leadership retreat. And then we really want to know from the Board of Trustees what your legislative priorities are for next year. One of the things that I hear often is cleanliness, litter. I think it would make a lot of sense to wrap a whole bunch of strategic initiatives around cleanliness and litter, or maybe it's image, as you described, Mr. Wallert. But if you could just share, and maybe we have this again on the 22nd meeting, but I really want to get your feedback on what your priorities are for 2021, big picture.
So I've already spoken about to me, it's, I think image is a good word. I want to go almost kind of approach a rebranding. I mean, we've been here for a while, and Colerain is a kind of a perception in people's minds has kind of been a little bit kind of static. And I think if we want to bring in new and exciting businesses, and we want to bring in, new residents and new construction, that we almost need to go through a rebranding. And part of that is the trash and in the building maintenance and those issues. The issues that, I think back to the first time I went to New York, and, there's, for lack of a better term, adult movie theaters all through Times Square. This was maybe 25 years ago, and then maybe 15 years later, those are all gone, and they're replaced by, all kinds of or like music stores and restaurants and places. And the crime actually went down. And I think a part of that is the image that changed, the seediness of New York. I'm not suggesting we are, but that made a big difference. And to me, that's a big strategic plan, and to get to realize that the idea that retail is struggling, and I certainly like to get alternative businesses so that we have folks employed in some of the more kind of modern industries?
When I started here 2 years and 8 months ago, about a week into it, I got a call from a guy on Springdale Road about that house out there on Springdale, and in the first couple months, we were able to get an 8-year problem to go away and get it turned around, and so for me, code enforcement continues to be critical because it does improve our image, and when I think about some of the properties that I've seen get turned around in the last 2.5 years, it's awesome. And we've given you the authority to hire to have our zoning department hire some more code enforcement officers. And it sounds like all three of us have been out doing some volunteer work with trash and different things like that. And so one of my priorities continues to be getting the place even more cleaned up. And there's still a lot of work to do there. The earlier in the meeting, you pointed out our review of our Colerain Community Improvement Corporation, and that we are very transparent in that. And through the last 6 months of what was a 15-day flatten the curve, which we're in day 100 and whatever it is now, it's been critical that we get these meetings and get this information out. And it seems like the problems we've had here is more with the Zoom links than with the actual meetings being recorded by Waycross. So one of my priorities is to continue the relationship with Waycross. I'm not sure where the contract is right now. I think it expires early next year. It was a 2-year contract. So I would ask that, but we're talking about 21, so it's coming up pretty quick. And I would ask that you take a look at extending that contract. And one of the things I've heard is when you come up Colerain Avenue, and we do have other business corridors besides that, you see a lot of asphalt and concrete and not a whole lot of landscaping. And you mentioned earlier our landscaping section that's coming up down by John Rose. And you go through other communities, and I am no fan of putting trees and landscape islands in the middle of a street because it allows water to get down. They have to be watered for them to grow, and that water gets down and migrates out underneath the traffic lanes and causes early deterioration of the pavement when you have a constant wet subbase. But some landscaping work along the sides of the road would certainly give it a different and better appearance. So those would be my priorities, would be the code enforcement. And to that end, with the landscaping and that, we did have KZF, and there was some controversy with that, but we do have a plan now. A lot of it's dormant until we pick off little pieces of it and get funding to fund it, but I think we've taken a step in that direction. So those would kind of be my priorities at this time. So
Thank you.
Did anybody else have any comments?
I think we talked about this when you guys the leadership retrieval. You guys are on track with more strategy, and I still like to continue with what we talked about in 2020. I know coronavirus came, it hurt us pretty bad. We cannot continue the process. The 2020 process continued to 21. I think you guys created a great 2020 strategic planning because of these things happen, epidemic happened. So let's proceed with that, combine together. Let's not forget some of the goals we established for the areas like Northbrook, Roseback. That's very critical. We've been planning for a long time. The people anxious to see what development is going to have. Give importance to that. Then hopefully 2020 will be a better year for us. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. So what I'll do from that is fantastic information. So what I'll do is try to combine all of that information into a policy priority resolution and have that on an agenda either the 22nd or the first October meeting, first meeting in October, so that you guys can formally adopt a policy priority resolution. That will then be the very first thing in the strategic plan and budget book is these are our priorities for 2021. Then drilling down, we've got your departmental goals, and drilling down, you've got the strategic initiatives that are going to get us to achieve those policy priorities. So that's
excellent.
That's
Excellent.
coming. Very helpful. Okay, now we have a discussion of trash and debris remediation processes and alternatives. This was set to be delivered at our last meeting, but was tabled to tonight. Mr. Iona, are you there?
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Thank everybody.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing? Can you see my screen?
Right now, it's just that handsome picture of you.
Where's that at?
It's actually a little more dim than usual. How about now?
Give me just a second. Not yet.
Did you try turning it off and turning it on again?
Yeah.
That's all I got. Earlier, we had a problem with the SD IHMI. That had to be rebooted, but
Well, Jeff, if you can honestly, Jeff, if you can see me, I'm gonna try to reshare it. Because if you can see my face through the
Yep, can see your face.
camera, yeah, then you should be able to get it shared. Let me try to share it one more time.
Okay.
And what this talks about in our business is review of various policy options and alternatives to addressing trash and debris on commercial properties.
That's right. There we go. Bingo.
Okay, excellent. Slide. Alrighty, let it boot up for 1 second. I think it should be. Okay, there it is. Does everybody see my slide?
Yes.
yeah, oh, there you go. That's good.
Perfect.
Well, thanks for the introduction, Jeff, and the trustees. Thank you for your time this evening. At prior trustee meeting, we had a discussion about a trash ordinance regarding commercial properties, and you all had asked us to go ahead and look at the different ways that we do some of our current processes, including housing court abatement, and then the potential addition of civil process for abating violations. And then also to give a background and kind of an overview of what we do as a code enforcement team. Now, I do want to reiterate that the Department of Planning and Zoning does have 3 service lines. The first being the planning, which is kind of the comprehensive plan that we're doing, which includes the digital input series, surveys, and implementation of different plans that we have throughout the township, like the Northbrook Action Plan and things like that. And then our zoning administrative service line is the deck permit, fence permits, zone changes, like the things like Stone Creek and different developments that are more the administrative functions of the zoning ordinance. And then the third service line is code enforcement, which is what we're here to talk about tonight, as it pertains to what we do, what our staff, the components of our staff, and how it relates to proposed changes to not only our ordinance, but also to some of these these larger items that seem to be bubbling up so much right now, not only with you as the trustees, but also with our residents. I can honestly tell you that as we've gone through the comprehensive planning process, not just in our, the digital input series and the surveys, and on the digital input map, all the interaction we have with the public, whether it's in person, digital, or otherwise, one of the biggest items that we hear about is cleaning and greening. It's how can we make things look better in our township, and in particularly the Colerain Avenue corridor. So with that, I'll kind of kick off my presentation. I'll talk about staff, our assets, what we do, the processes we have, and then at the end I'll kind of kick back just kind of a general idea that I've been thinking about honestly for quite some time, and for the future of what maybe code enforcement 2.0 could look like. So just kind of the nuts and bolts of the department, staffing. We have one full-time code official, so that's a 40-hour a week position. And then we also have 2 part-time code officials. Both of those are code specialists. This year, we did roll out a new system where we took a prior code enforcement role, which was just allocated for grass and weed violations, and then we reallocated them to being a more comprehensive part-time code specialist. And then we have me, the Director of Planning and Zoning, which again provides oversight over our 3 service lines. You know, the assets are pretty general. We have a laptop that we use our CSR software for tracking and input. That's changes-based software. I will tell you that we did move from Zone Pro, which was our prior software, to Cage, and that move was the result of a prior director. And luckily, when Zone Pro dropped us, Mr. Mills had a great relationship with Cajun to get us this CSR software. Otherwise, we'd be using paper and pen to track violations. So the software is very good. However, we're not using paper and pen, and it does do reports and tracking. However, it is a little bit clunky at times. We also have 2 marked vehicles. So this year we decided to mark our vehicles. That way when we're out in the neighborhoods as well as on the corridor in our commercial areas, you know that Colerain Township code enforcement is out in your neighborhood looking for violations. So what do we do? So we have 2 main tracks for enforcing property violations. Our first track, which I think is really our standard enforcement track, if you go to any township, across the region, they're probably using what I would call the housing corridor standard enforcement track. And that consists of, being able to take issues like property maintenance, trash, grass, junk vehicles, and zoning violations through a housing court process where you issue an NOV. And if you do not get compliance, the ultimate result is that you end up taking that property owner through a housing court process to achieve compliance. The second process is an abatement process, and we currently are able to do grass and trash, and then we are working on adding junk vehicle and unsafe, unstable structures to our tool belt as far as abatements. And the big difference there is that we don't rely on court for compliance. We actually go out and abate it as the township, and then we get reimbursed, typically through property tax assessment. In addition to those items, we also, again, we go to court. So for the housing court, our lead code official here, that individual will go down and he actually goes to court, including doing CAPIAS runs. So if somebody doesn't show up to their housing court date, we do a CAPIAS run where we collaborate with the police department to go out and knock on a door and issue a citation to that property owner that they need to show up at court. Some of the other things that we do is we refer, we implement a hammer and a heart approach. And that's where, when we go out to a property, sometimes there are circumstances on that property where maybe the property owner is unable to complete the repairs themselves. And it's by no means that they are a repeat offender. It's that they just don't have the means. Perhaps maybe they are trying to age in place and they're on a limited income. And in that case, we try to allocate or refer or connect that property owner to services that can take care of them and address those needs and bring the property in compliance. Now, in other situations, if we have a situation where a property owner isn't compliant, we certainly try to use all the resources that we have as a staff, but we also reach out to people like the Hamilton County Environmental Crimes Task Force, the Hamilton County Health Department, the Hamilton County Building Department, and any other services we have to try to achieve compliance one way or another. Additional things that we do is, again, we collaborate with other organizations and departments. We follow up on that abatement process, which includes assessing the property. We do any blitzes, which are neighborhood enhancement programs.
Thank you, your lifesaver.
So we focus on a very concentrated area, and we go around and get every single property in that area in an effort to bring up perhaps what could be considered some of the maybe the worst areas in the township for property maintenance and property maintenance related violations. And then we also do initiatives. So numbers to date in 2020, we currently have 1,920 violations reported as of this morning. Now that number is constantly in flux as new violations get added. This is a rough estimate on site visits. There's not a magic wand where property gets reported. We have a staff member who goes out to that site, they take a look at it, and then they just wave their property maintenance code official wand, and then things happen. More often than not, it requires more than one site visit and more than one conversation, letter, phone call, etc. And in some cases, it can be up to 12, 15, or 20 times because, as I stated before, property owners don't show up to court and just things like that. So I guesstimate, and this is a very low guesstimate, that we do about 3.5 site visits per property, which is about 6,720 site visits. Now, those are just the site visits related to that property, and doesn't include some of the other work that we do, which equals about, I think there's like 35 weeks so far this year. That's around 200 plus or minus site visits a week for staff. As it pertains to civil cases, we currently have 47 in the hopper, and then we do have a backlog right now. And at last check, it was around 130, but we seem to be moving forward with those. One of the big things that I've noticed in the year that I've been here approximately is that when people receive a letter from the township, sometimes that doesn't get action. When they get that second notice, sometimes that doesn't get action. When they get the notice, the final notice that they're going to court, that doesn't get action. But when they actually receive that summons, we do achieve compliance at that level. Unfortunately, we've been out there 4 times. We've had to use civil resource, we've had to use legal resources, we've had to use staff resources. Fortunately, we have a contract with our legal representation that does help us when it has related to our use of legal purposes. This year we've done 61 grass abatements and 2 trash abatements. What is our big violations? So if you look at the numbers here, junk is one of the big things we deal with. Right now we've had over 515 tall grass. As you can see, trash is close behind it, 362 violations. Junk, trash, and inoperable vehicles are the big items. So they are the biggest items that we have here that we spend our time on in Colerain Township. Now, as it relates to an increase in trash, we also have an increase in violations. As you can see here, and this is just a rough metric, from 2012 to 2018, we had a relatively stable amount of NOV complaints. As you can see in 2019, what I expect in 2020, we're going to have almost double, if not 2.5 to 3 times some of the years prior. So we are increasing in violations. And so the process we use, as you all know, is a beat system. We switched to the beat system earlier this year, where we have 3 designated areas. And those areas are divided up by staff member, whereas we used to utilize an approach where a staff member would go specialize in their function, which resulted in sometimes 3 to 4 visits by individual staff members to one property, and each of those staff members would have a different issue on that property, which would result in a considerable number of extra trips to that property. So this year we've rolled out a new beat system. Unfortunately, due to the epidemic, right after we were going to roll out the new system, we went on a hiring freeze. We weren't able to hire that third person yet. That third person, or that new part-time code specialist, was just recently hired and brought on board in late July. So we really haven't been able to see what this new system can do yet. I am very confident that once it gets up and running and things start to normalize and we get a full complement of our staff, that this system will start to show significant improvement in what we see as the goal of proactive code enforcement, community-based code enforcement. Again, we use that hammer and a hard approach that I discussed earlier. If you need help, we'll get it. If you don't need help, we're going to come with you and we're going to use the connections we have to get compliance. We've been using those connections to a lot of success recently. Again, our primary tools are the housing court and that abatement. And those processes are as follows. Our housing court includes, we can use property maintenance, junk vehicles, trash, and zoning. And this process really, the timeline continues until we achieve compliance. And the resources with this consist of our township staff and legal counsel, as well as the police department for cases. And in this model, we typically get compliance after that kind of first inspection around 25% of the time. On that re-inspection or final notice period, we get about 35% compliance. And then, by the time we have to move to the housing court, it's about 40% of cases that, we have to really step up our game and take them through that housing court process, or at least send them notification that we're sending them through that process, which gets their attention. So again, these are the 4 items that you can use, that you can take through the housing court process. As it pertains to abatements, we currently can abate trash and grass, and we're looking to, start to do junk vehicle abatements, as well as unsafe building abatements. And, the main thing that we currently do right now is grass. We have done a couple of trash abatements. This year, the board allocated approximately $10,000 to do to do the trash and debris abatements. I'm confident that we're gonna be able to use all of that money. We currently use that in a very, what I would say, conservative approach to abating trash. If you look in our housing court process, you'll see that trash is one of the things that we can take to housing court. When we post for trash and grass, we post for both housing court, and then we also post for abatement. So if we get, if we get to the housing court process and we go to civil court and it's a big problem property, we can certainly then move that to the abatement track because we're ready to do that. But that's something that, again, it's a second option. But again, so for the abatement, we typically get about 85% compliance on that first kind of inspection and posting. However, out of the 515 abatements this year, about 15% of them, around about, we've abated. And the process here is it takes about 2 to 4 weeks to actually abate a junk vehicle or grass. And then the third process that's been proposed is it's a civil process. So we've had housing court, we've had the abatement process, and now we have our civil process, which is being proposed, and that consists of sending out an NOV, taking that property owner to court, and then issuing a fine. And if that fine's not paid, there's a lien. There's certainly a number of steps in this process. it takes about 14 days per ROC to kind of, we give them about 14 days to correct the violation, and then we take them to court, and then there's another 14-day period. The total timeline here is, maybe a month to 2 months, depending on, the different factors associated with the process. However, this process may be a little more legal intense than just than our housing court in a process. And then finally, based on all of this, we have a number of processes available to us. We're adding some new tools to the process with the junk vehicle abatement and our unsafe, unstable structure abatement. There are so many things that impact code enforcement, and it's staff, it's all the different players, staff, legal counsel, the property owners, the different players that we deal with as we try to abate or take these properties to housing court, and then all the different organizations that we can work with. That I honestly would recommend that, it is a huge item, and right now, I can tell you that we squeeze a ton of juice from the resources we have with the staff that we have. Just for reference, the city of Hamilton, they have an area of approximately 21.89 square miles. Colerain Township's double that at 41.29 approximately roundabout. The city of Hamilton has 5 full-time staff and then an assistant director who's just in charge of that. For us to take the amount, I mean, we're talking about almost, 1,700 plus or minus violations to this point of the year. It's on the feet to be able to be, great at being what I would say we're doing right now. And if the township, really wants to be great at this code enforcement, I would love the opportunity to do that and see what that looks like. But I think that it's more than just piecemeal adding tools or doing things. I think that it would be great for us to maybe do a further examination and review as part of this 2021 strategic plan to do a comprehensive deep dive into all the different things that we can do to make code enforcement operate at the level of service that the trustees and the residents and all the different stakeholders want. And the benefits of doing this is it's going to give us time to really define and benchmark what that success looks like. As I stated earlier, we don't have the full, our new system really hasn't even been rolled out or given a chance at full staff. I think that over the next few months, I truly believe we're going to see some significant results. And even with some of the bigger problem properties that have bubbled to the top recently, those are all properties that we've had in our system that we're working on. It's just that we have such a large volume that we're dealing with that it is very hard to drop everything and attack just one property, even though we're more than happy to do it. But allowing us to define and benchmark what that success looks like really gives us the opportunity to say, where do we want to be and how do we get there? Second, as I was stating previously, is this comprehensive approach will really allow us to create this, how does it work? And I don't know if any of you are Jim Collins fans. He has this thing about a flywheel, and it's about all the different pieces that have to be in play to build momentum and continue to increase your momentum to achieve the result, which in this case is to create a successful, proactive, community-based code enforcement team in the township. And I think that it's not just one piece of, all right, staff, go out there and get them. It's so many different components, like it's maybe a special improvement district, or we need to change our current regulations, or maybe we need to increase our staffing or use our staff in a different way. I'm sure there's an education and outreach component. What services do we have? What do we not have? What partnerships do we look at doing? Are our processes great? More NEP blitzes, less NEP blitzes, concentrated NEP blitzes. There's just so many different things that I feel this comprehensive look would allow us to say, all right, what needs to be step number 1 and what will get us all the way around to step number 10 so that we can do these things in an incremental way to build that momentum and really move the needle in a permanent, lasting way. And then 2, allowing us to kind of, sort through this will give us a little more time to see the impact of this current process, this fee structure, which due to the COVID and the hiring freeze has kind of delayed seeing the results. So that I think is really in a nutshell what I would think that our current snapshot of our current code enforcement efforts look like, what we do, how we approach it, and then what maybe that 2.0 or that next level of success could look like for us. And with that, I'd end my presentation and be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mike.
So I have a couple. Did you want to go?
No, please.
Okay. So I had a couple things. We're looking at, I'm not saying that my way is right or wrong or your way is right or wrong, but this is a discussion I've had with Mr. Mills about the idea of comprehensive, making part of the 2021 plan versus what my parents would tell me all the time growing up, do something even if it's wrong. Sometimes I feel there's some paralysis by analysis here. To me, yes, we need a comprehensive long-term plan. We need a better way of doing this, but concentrating on fixing the issue with trash and abatements on commercial properties in the corridor is something that we should already be doing. And I came up with, when you said comprehensive, I came up with a couple of ideas that I just kind of wanted to run by that I think may help. Number one, I think that we really need to more clearly communicate our expectations to these commercial properties. And if that's sending something U.S. mail or physically going in and saying, hey, I'm with Colerain Township, these are our expectations. I think I have the resolution that Larry's going to talk about. It has some legal issues, I guess, and I don't want to get, I don't want to get us sued. But in the three different solutions you provided, I'd like to accelerate that abatement process, because what I don't want to see is a commercial business that gets warned for trash, on a continual basis. Mr. Unger's point is well taken in that it's not the businesses aren't littering their own land. I get that. But I go to some, and I go to I'm going to point out some specifics. I go to the Shell station. Why is that always clean? I bet you people litter there. I bet you people dump their stuff there. There's a Shell, a Dunkin', and a chicken place, all kind of. But every time you go there, it's clean. You go to the, the burrito place in front of the old service merchandise, clean. Landscaping clean. I guarantee you the people throw their wrappers, their wrappers and their trash in places there. So I think that we accelerate that abatement process and tell people what our expectations are. And those are just two, and I could pull a number of other places that I just drive by and I'm like, wow, I want more of you. Even McDonald's has a lot of trouble on the weekends because that parking lot will just be trashed. But you know what? By the end of the day, Sunday, it's clean again. Monday, it's trashed again. Monday night, it's clean again. They keep their landscaping well done, things like that. You can drive up and down and see examples of people that are doing it right. I feel for the people that are doing it right, that are surrounded by the people that aren't taking an interest, because that leads to lower sales. That leads to less customers. I think that we continue to work with the county sheriff environmental crimes unit. My fourth point, which brought up some consternation from some citizens, maybe we look at these drop-off facilities, these collection bins. Some people take care of them. Some people don't. And I get it. We're that there's nonprofits that rely on this. Well, if you rely on it, take care of it. I mean, I think that if we communicate if you aim high, you're going to get high. If you don't aim high, you're not going to get high. I think that we should look at adding a quarter code enforcement position to supplement the staff. I get it when Mr. Iona says they're overworked. Gosh, I'd love to have like a retired police officer, retired firefighter that has that authority that goes in, it has that experience of dealing with people. And this is something that Mr. Mills said Springfield Township was looking into. Utilize the recycle fund to hire some part-time employees to clean up trash and litter, not at the businesses, but just as a transfer, just to kind of transfers to the next level. And then I think that we work more closely with the property managers. And the last thing is, let's have a Gold Seal Award for those businesses doing the right thing. So I think that I get it that we want it part of a comprehensive plan, but I'm also finished with it. I was finished with it when I pulled up behind the old Olive Garden and looked behind what was there, and I, honest to God, was scared a rat would jump out at me. What I saw just disgusted me, and I'm like, I'm not going to do it. We're not going to have it anymore. And I don't care if I have to bring it up every meeting until we address this issue, and I get it. It's going to be a painful transition, but we can't do it. And we've got citizens putting couches in their truck and burning them up because people are leaving them there. That's just wrong. We need to start holding people accountable. A nonprofit with 50 tires in their backyard. I mean, that club, the Olympic Club, is nonprofit, I think. I mean, it's going to stop. And whatever we need to do to make it stop, it's going to stop. And I know, and we can make things part of a comprehensive plan, but I feel very passionate in the idea that when I looked at that Olive Garden and I looked at the stuff that was there, bags, just raw trash, not just trash, raw trash. The stuff that draws things like rats. And I just at that point I knew what I was going to be doing the next several months, is that we just can't let it happen anymore. So that's my feeling, and and I'm not at all trying to be disrespectful. I know that you guys you got a lot of, the numbers show, man, but we got to get these commercial places reined in. If only for the people that are doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. You mentioned something about that I would agree with. After having been out on several cleanups the last couple weeks, using some recycling dollars to hire people to go out and police the area. One of the areas we did recently was from Colerain and Galbraith up towards Ronald Reagan Highway, and even the bank branch that's there had a bunch of stuff in their lot, and I guarantee you none of it came out of that bank branch, but there's just, I would certainly consider hiring a couple people to go out and just pick up, anything within 10 feet of the edge of right-of-way, or, wherever the right-of-way is that should be maintained. It's hopeful that, at your house and my house and Roger's house, we maintain all the way out to the edge of pavement, but there's just, we do have to find a way to get out ahead of this, and maybe that's an answer for us to talk about at a future meeting. You mentioned the Olympic Club. Is that, I don't know if that's in our system or not, but I was unaware there's tires there.
Yeah,
I guess we can find that out.
Yeah. No, that somebody removed them, and as soon as they were dumped, somebody removed them, and we're trying to figure out where they came from, I think.
Were you the one who got Mr. Bryan Peak at our meeting tonight, or how did he get
I think I pushed Mr. Mills to get him here.
I mean, that was very informative, and I would say we're all three. Sounds like we're all three on the same page. It's just how do we get there? So, but for right now, I've personally gone out and done some research. I think one of the major trash collection spots seems to be anywhere within 15 feet of a bus stop, and I asked Jeff Weckbach if he would contact Queen City Metro and see what they do at other bus stops, and if they do any trash cans or any, what their plan is. They have bus stops all over every jurisdiction. So, thanks for, bringing this up, and it sounds like we're all three on board with getting somewhere with it. So, Raj? Raj, Mike?
Active enforcement. What actually I did is very interesting. I contacted Green Township, Sycamore Township, Sims Township, Anderson Township, the surrounding township. Then I went in the national search, some of the best little project they do in the business. I come out the best program they have, Kennington, Philadelphia. Beautiful, fantastic program. Its bottom line, it starts with the law enforcement. Maybe I can talk on this next topic, next resolution thing, discuss. And great program, number one, starting with the enforcement. People get the message, enforcement. Write a ticket. Green Township writes a ticket. Who writes a ticket? The police officers. The part of the team, they write the citation. They get the message. I'm talking about the business. We're talking about the residential different thing. We're talking pretty much the business.
Right.
Okay. And they enforcement. Anderson Township, they do that.
The police do it in Anderson Township?
Yeah, the sheriff's writes it too. Yeah, because they contract with the sheriff. Sycamore Township, they also had a contract, but they had a county contract with the Sims Township. Okay, the enforcement give the citation quick message you pass on. They get the message right away. You give them a notice, you give them a time, 7 days period. I'm going to give you come back. I'm going to give you 3 more chance. They don't do that. In this, Kennington is number one priority. Also, if you see the pictures, the community also involved in this. You can pass down.
Yeah,
the community involved in this process. So it's a combination of enforcement, law enforcement, the community involvement, and also the local government involved. It's a great task. I know Colerain Township long-waited things, and the time right now, we got to pass along the message now.
And there also has to be a component of citizen education.
Education, yeah.
That,
That's why it talks about that if you get chance, it's got Kennington, the little project in Philadelphia.
And I don't
I have,
I don't care if you're rich or poor.
Raj, I have that written down.
Go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
I have that written down, and I'd have to echo your sentiment that it's not just one player and us going out and,
Yeah.
hammering every property owner. It's gonna take a lot of different players, as you had said, to address the issue.
Right,
And,
right.
I really like the idea that you're talking about in
Yeah.
a very kind of comprehensive manner.
Yeah, you presented a great program, Mike. That was is a great research and a great program. I really liked it a lot. I think the Colerain Township coming a long way. Now we're approaching the enforcement thing. It never happened like this before. We're sending more people to court, and more people before you even go to court. They rectify the problems, and also if the people don't show up to court, we got a great judge, Bryan Bouchard, issue warrant. We got the police department follow through the warrant. We even lock the people up. Judge put them on a jail. So people getting this message, then we keep on moving forward. And now we got to go through these commercial things. We something that we actually should follow.
You just back up what you said. People, and to add to Mr. Iona said, man, they're ready now. I mean, I got people calling me wanting to clear up brush on I-275. I mean, you've got Dan out, picking up stuff on the side of the road. I mean, this is our opportunity, I feel, for this issue. And maybe we work on a bigger comprehensive thing, but this is it. I think the folks at Colerain are ready for us to take this and take this area back, and then we can build on that. And I know that's against the whole kind of idea of work on a big kind of comprehensive 2021 thing. But man, somebody once told me this: you don't pick your time. Sometimes it picks you. And I feel that time is picking us right now for this issue, and that if we fail that, you know, that shame on us for that. Look, I could be wrong 100%. That's just kind of where I'm at.
And so we've had this conversation when we do disagree on approach, but I guess the way that I see this is just in the last 5, 10, 15 minutes, you guys have identified 6 or 7 different programs that you would like to see executed. And I think that from my perspective and the way my mind works is let's identify this as a problem and let's crush this problem. Let's hit it from 360 degrees. Let's think about all the ways that we can eliminate litter in Colerain Township and dumping and all that stuff. But that's not something that is just like a switch that we can flick on, right? That's something that we have to budget for, and we have to, and that's the purpose of the strategic plan and budget. We put, what is it that you want to accomplish? With the resources that are available to accomplish that, you put those things together and then you crush a problem. And that's sort of the way that we've been addressing the first year that the last board was involved. It was transparency, and we just crushed it. We put 6 initiatives together, and now we're getting 4 stars, the highest level of transparency you can get. We crushed it. And then last year was beautification and and then there was connections, creating connections this year. We've gotten millions of dollars in grants for sidewalks because we've said that this is our moonshot, right? Like we're going to put everything we have into this and crush it. Now, what I mentioned to Mr. Waller was, is there like an elegant solution that's like sort of a combination of the two? I get the need to do something now, and so like, what is it? If you could pick 1 or 2 things that you would do now that we could try to quickly drop everything. And that's the other part of the strategic plan, is that if we're constantly putting out fires, then we're never really applying ourselves to problems, because it's always like, put this fire out, put that fire out. If we can say, let's all focus our efforts on this thing, this big picture thing, and we'll do it, and we'll do it well. So I wonder if maybe we do a couple of things now to get the momentum building, because as you mentioned, that sometimes the time picks you, and then have this be the big push in 2021 where we just bring it and execute on whatever they're doing in Kensington, PA. I talked to Jonathan Adee from Keep Cincinnati Beautiful. He's the executive director of Keep Cincinnati Beautiful. About the public education campaigns and what they've had success with, learning from peers that have walked down this path before and bringing it to Colerain in a way that we have the resources for and can actually do something. So.
Right.
Could that be a middle ground?
Yeah, I think maybe, I don't know, maybe you and I can maybe sit and hash this out and then bring something.
Sure.
I mean, I just talked to Pete Whitty the other day, who's, everybody in Cincinnati knows who Pete Whitty is.
Sure.
But he has these I Love Price Hill signs.
Yep.
And he's got them all over Price Hill. In fact, he was dropping one off for my classroom. That kind of, I don't know, he's that kind of grassroots kind of guy.
Yep.
And maybe we work in hash, but we've got, I do think that the time is choosing us for this, but I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't just all of a sudden, go get them, team.
Right. Well, and Dan mentioned something about the bag, or somebody mentioned something about, maybe it was Raj, about the bag of trash, 2 bags of trash or whatever. One of Jonathan Adee's suggestions was the 1 bag of trash challenge, where you challenge all residents in Colerain Township to pick up 1 bag of trash. And if 5% of the township actually takes you up on that, you've solved your litter problem.
But in fact, Vice Mayor Smitherman challenged me to that.
Yeah.
A couple years ago.
Yeah, that's what they're doing in Cincinnati.
My resolution was, or my idea was, every 10 hours you're on Facebook, spend 1 hour picking up trash.
Absolutely, that's what I said earlier.
You do that, there's like
That's
2.1
exactly
billion
what I said
hours
earlier.
of
Some people
Facebook time
say-
in this township.
Yeah. So I'm sorry to talking when you're talking. I'm sorry about that.
That's all worked
But
out,
anytime it frustrates me, there are people sitting there in Facebook hours and hours blasting township. They're not even 1 hour come out on the community cleanup or anything, beautification. Every Saturday, people out there on the 275 Ronald Reagan, early morning, cold and rainy, they're there, beautify themselves. Only one thing, they got a pride where they live. They want township to look good. So, I'm sorry, I'm already talking. It really makes me so mad when the people blast our township, yet not doing anything. But go back to Matt. I think Matt, go back both of you, listening to you, like 2 things we pick up in the thing. Matt mentioned about communication with the business. earlier. So write them a letter. We're going to make an aggressive campaign, on this trash things. Send out the letters. Or, we're going to aggressively enforce it. Second thing, when you say we're going to do it, let's do it.
Do it, yeah.
Let's do it. Okay, we're going to give. On the next item, come the resolution, I will talk about that some other times. Don't give them a month. Don't give them 12 months. Do it right away. 7 days, you get a notice. After 7 days, we're going to give a citation. I think that, like a second point, communication, second thing, enforcement. Let police officer can be able to cite with the ordinance, right? Our ordinance.
Resolution.
Well, police officers
Our
can,
Colerain police officer.
well,
If we drive around the business, okay,
If
and
we
they
have
see
a-
the pile of business, can they give a citation, right?
well, they can give a citation if we have a resolution that has enabling legislation from the state of Ohio. Yes.
Yes. So right now, we don't have the resolution in the Colerain Township.
No, we do. So for junk and debris, one of the key takeaways I think from Mike's presentation for me was that there are state mandated timelines that are very, very frustrating, and that's the core of one of these of our dialogue here. So with nuisances, trash and debris, to abate them, there is state mandated timelines that we have to hit. And then with if we want to go to the housing court route and get down to Judge Bouchard, there are mandatory guidelines or timelines for
Timeline.
how long that takes, and it takes forever.
Right.
And that's the problem. That's the problem. But it's an intractable problem on the local level.
One thing that we have to realize is even as a limited home rule township, Colerain Township cannot impose criminal penalties. Okay, they can only impose minor misdemeanors. The only way there can be a criminal penalty is if it's in the Ohio Revised Code. Now, we heard the sheriff talk about, well, if it's littering, and that's a crime, then a police officer can give a citation for it. But if it's a nuisance, there's an Ohio statute dealing with townships that sets forth a specific method that you have to go about getting rid of a nuisance. I don't think it's productive to talk too much about the law in these open meetings, because then we lose our attorney-client privilege and we lose some of our creativity in trying to come up with new ways to go about these that may be consistent with the Ohio Revised Code. And I don't know that you want everyone listening in on us being creative and try to figure out a way to do these things. But just as for education purposes, the township doesn't have the ability to set forth criminal penalties for certain acts unless there's what they call some enabling legislation in the Ohio Revised Code.
Okay.
And
So we will end that by, Mr. Mills and I will sit down and lock ourselves in a room and.
good luck with that, Jeff Mills. And to follow up, I would, at this point in time, and I don't know that we have the budget for it or anything, but I wouldn't object to hiring a couple people for some period of time just to go out and try to get ahead of this. Like I've said, and Matt's kind of concurred with, these businesses aren't the one dumping the trash on their lot. They're just the ones that aren't sending an employee out to clean it up. Well, keep in mind, a lot of these restaurants, and that seems to be part of the problem, lost all their second quarter revenue. They're struggling. They still have their fixed insurance and liquor licenses and whatever their costs are, but they've lost a lot of their revenue. And take, for example, a fast food restaurant that their regional managers got them cut down to so many labor hours, and the manager's just like, I don't have an hour in my budget to send this guy outside to clean for an hour because then there's nobody at the cash register. So there's just a lot going on right now. That's why I think if we had a couple temporary people to go clean stuff up. I know Raj, in his working days, had some great relationships with the probation department, and maybe you still do.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's part of it too, is go get some free help, and
Yeah, they do. They come and clean Pippin Road, Northbrook area,
Maybe that can be part of your
you know,
conversation.
Yeah,
with Jeff.
absolutely.
Some of the people, they email me, I connect with the Jody Lees, she's an officer in charge of that program now. So we do that. I completely understand Matt. I think the time is now. We can do it tomorrow. Let's deal with it, and people should get the message. How are you going to get the message? Maybe let's start a rating. How can we do that? Like sending the letters to the businesses. Colerain Township now developing a new program or new enforcement. We want to send that be part of.
And you know what, Raj? It reminds me of the first time I ever met you was probably 20 plus years ago, when a friend of mine, his name's Pat DeWine, was on the Hamilton County Commission, and I was driving along 275 one day, and there was trash all over the side of the road, and I called Pat, and I said, "This is driving me nuts. Who do you know at the probation department that could help us get fixed up?" And he said, "Well, this guy's name's Raj Rajagopal." And I said, "What? I've never heard that name before." And that's how I first met you, and that was probably in 20 years ago.
Yeah,
And-
thank you.
and-
I took a pride, I tell you.
But you used to, but the funny thing was, I called Pat and I got hooked up with you, and the next day you had people out there.
I made
Is the magic still there, or is the magic
Ohio
gone?
highway here, I-275, our highway, number 1, cleanest in Ohio. They get award every year. That's what the ODOT
So
loves.
me and you were doing this before Matt was
Everywhere,
even born.
There you go.
My
Yeah,
son
20 years
was-
ago. Yeah, I was born.
My son was little at the time. "Dad, look at the trash over the highway, Dad. How come you're not taking care of it?" But I made that. Ohio, I run this number 1 in the state of Ohio, best cleaned highway.
Well, and maybe that's part of our solution then, is to get you to.
We
Figure
can
this
do
out.
that now. They come there. We got some labor union problem. We're not hiring the private people. Now, Jason, Jason, Jim, they're in charge of that. They said they can send the private people Colerain Avenue, and they do. Maybe we'll call Jason again. Now they can do only Colerain Avenue, and they come to the businesses. We need to come to the alternative plan. I think we got to figure it out, Larry, how our enforcement people, number 1, can at least give a misdemeanor citation, okay, with the existing law. Number 2, when I go to the next solid waste committee meeting, I will ask for funding to hire a part-time deputy sheriff. So focus primarily on the subdivision, suburbs, especially that's Colerain. So we can do that. And there are ways we can do it, but we'll do it right away. We will make it.
Well, great. I think we've had a good discussion. It sounds like you're going to follow up with Jeff. It sounds like you're going to follow up with him independently, and I'll follow up with him independently too. We do have some other business for tonight, and we should probably keep it rolling along and get to that. So you'll follow up with Jeff about some
is
probation
Matt
stuff
okay?
and battle.
How's that? Huh?
We just
Yep.
talk to him independently. We
Yep.
can't talk to him together. So
No, we're talking here.
right, but I mean, it sounds like each one of
Right.
us has some ideas to talk to Jeff about.
When I unlock the door and let him out of the room, then you can have him next.
Okay. But no, we do need to get moving on. We've got some other items here, and I think that.
So, Mr. Wallert, how would you like to handle resolution?
So at this point, so Mr. Barbieri's made the point that there's some problems with the ORC, so I think technically, I think it just dies if we just don't do anything with it, right?
Right.
Okay.
From the agenda. Since there has been no motion.
Right.
we'll have to table it.
Okay.
Mike? Okay.
Okay, very good. So then that brings us to the end of old business, if that's your pleasure. And that brings us into the consent items. And we have some pretty important items in the consent agenda tonight. The first one is the promotion of an assistant chief. I'll roll through all of these, and then we can have a conversation about any individual ones that you'd like. So the first one is related to the promotion of the Assistant Chief in the Department of Fire and EMS. The promotion, which didn't print out in my copy here. Hang on a second. Here we go. So the recommendation here is approval of all the consent agenda items. Recommendation is to promote Captain Burns to Assistant Fire Chief of the Department's Operations Bureau to fill the vacancy created by the promotion of Assistant Chief Alan Walls to Fire Chief. Contingent upon the adoption of the motion to promote Captain Burns, he would assume the role of Assistant Fire Chief at an annual salary of $96,869.81, effective September 2nd, 2020. He would be exempt from FLSA. You may recall Captain Burns' name because he was named the Ohio Fire Officer of the Year in 2020. Our very own Captain Burns. His recommendation is to promote Captain Burns. Then, backfilling Captain Burns' position, for a long time we have had a plan in place to reduce the number of captain roles and replace those captain roles with lieutenant roles. And the reason for that is cost savings and just operational efficiency. And so the recommendation here is to replace Captain Burns' position with a lieutenant position, and specifically Firefighter Paramedic Scott Becker is recommended to fill the vacancy created by the promotion of Captain Grant Burns to Assistant Fire Chief effective September 20th, 2020. Annual
I
salary.
would just as soon leave those last two for a separate motion,
Okay.
the C and D.
Okay, all right. So would you like to remove some items from the?
No, it's
how do
just,
you-
I think that those are from trustee Wallert, and that might need to be, if we have to vote on these, I just
Okay.
assume that was separate.
So you don't think Waller would be able to vote on the donation?
I don't know.
I'm not going to vote on the donation.
Okay, all right.
So let's just do A and B,
Very good.
and we can chastise Matt since he won't be able to discuss it either.
Very good. So firefighter paramedic Becker's promotion according to the local 3915 career firefighter collective bargaining agreement is his salary would be $83,067. And that would be effective Sunday, September 20th. There would be a 1-year probationary period. Firefighter paramedic Becker was the third highest scoring candidate following a competitive promotional process conducted during July 2019. So we'll stop there.
And so what you need is a motion to approve those two promotions.
Sure.
Is that right, Larry? I motion that we approve those two promotions.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
It's a great job.
Is there any other discussion?
No.
Hearing none, Mr. Baker, would you please call for a vote?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
All right.
Very good, thank you, Board. The final three items on the consent agenda are two donations from Trustee Wallert in the amount of $300 each, one to the Police Department, one to the Fire Department, and then a final donation of $50. And that $50 comes from the Tanis family on Christie Ridge in appreciation for the department's assistance in celebrating a birthday via drive-by parade during the COVID pandemic.
I would motion that we approve acceptance of those, of donation C, donation D, and donation E.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? I'd like to thank Trustee Wallert for his donation to the Police Department and Fire Department, and the donation, I'd like to thank the Tonis family for the donation of $50. Any other discussion?
I would say thank you, Matt. You really show us care about departments, care about township.
And you said you didn't want to, did you want to comment or hold your tongue?
No, I'm just,
Hold
thank
your-
you for the job they do.
Okay, great. And Mr. Baker, would you please call for a vote on acceptance of items C, D, and E, those three donations?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Board. We've accomplished a lot tonight.
And the next item, item 12, is our fiscal office report. Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Board. I'll be brief. Just wanted to give a brief update on public records request fulfilled. We've fulfilled 154 requests since April 1st and 234 year to date. We're down to just 36 active requests, so
It's huge.
We've made a huge leap in getting caught up and seeing sort of some light at the end of the tunnel. So it's a group effort, and have great staff here that helps me with those. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. There's an item on for 13 for adjournment, but there's item 14 for executive session. So I think that, do we need to have an executive session this evening, Mr. Mills?
Would you like to have an executive session this evening? There are things that we could discuss. Yes.
Discuss later.
Yes, we could discuss them at your pleasure. If
Is
you'd like to
anything,
discuss them
is
tonight.
anything pertinent? Time sensitive?
No.
Okay.
Let me look one more time. Hold on. I've got some notes. Hold on. No, I don't think so.
Then I would entertain with nothing to be discussed in any executive session, then I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
I second it.
I'll motion for adjourn.
Oh, you motioned to.
I will motion to adjourn.
Okay.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, would you please call for a vote?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye. This meeting of the Colerain Township Board of Trustees is adjourned at 10:54 p.m. on Tuesday, September 8th, 2020. Thank you for watching.